Welcome to Raging Bullets, a DC Comics fan podcast, episode 360. Welcome to Raging Bullets. I'm Sean Whalen, drnorge, and I'm joined as always by my co-host Jim. I am the Mole, and the sensational sensei of the Whatnot Segulent, and the Duke of You-Know.
How's it going, eh?
We're talking this episode, it's the first of a two-part discussion about the Trinity War. And we talk about issue 1 of Pandora, Justice League number 22, and I always call it Justice League of America. Do you find yourself doing that with the regular Justice League book, where every so often you throw the of America in just because it's Justice League? But we also talk about Justice League of America number 6, and we have a casual chat about Batwing. We are proud members of the Comics Podcast Network and the League of Comic Book Podcasts. Sponsoring us this episode is DCBService.com and InStockTrades.com. Over at DCBService.com, they just put up the August list. And one of the cool things they have, I love when they do these bundles. It's the Vertigo bundle. And it's all the Vertigo number 1s, the new ones that are coming out. This includes Sandman Overture number 1, Coffin Hill number 1, Hinterkind number 1, and The Witching Hour number 1. These books regularly come to $18.96. They're 50% off, only $9.48. Now, I don't know if you're like me, when there's new titles coming out, especially with lines like Vertigo, where I'm like, I want to try these books out. I'm on a budget. I don't know if I'm going to be able to keep all of them or not. How do I do that without taking a risk? DCB Service does a great job of taking those bundles and making sure to put them together in a 50% off deal, where you're getting a little bit of an extra off of what DCB Service's normal discounts are. And sometimes it's like 10% more than what their usual discounts are, in order to let you try those at a discount. And it lets me pick and choose then, am I going to keep all 4? Am I going to keep 3 of them, 2 of them? Which ones? I'm getting Sandman Overture for sure. The other books I want to try, though, because the San Diego News really introduced these series in such a way. They're doing a diverse lineup again from Vertigo. This whole Defy line, this whole Defy concept that they're doing really goes back to the roots of, I think, what makes Vertigo work. Vertigo should be the line where they're trying different kind of series that you just aren't going to get from DC's regular line. They should feel creator owned. They should feel very unique, and they're one of those things where when you want to step outside of the superhero worlds and you don't want to worry about having to be a part of superhero continuity, and you just want to have something that's a little bit different that feels like literature. And I'm not saying that regular superhero comics don't feel like that. Of course, we've got amazing writers who are doing that. But Vertigo's that line that a lot of times appeals to a different sort of crowd and reminds you that comics aren't limited to just one genre. It's an art form. It's a delivery form. And I think it was Neil Gaiman who I heard say that in an interview once before, where comics aren't limited to one thing. They can really extend over all genres and honestly create some of their own that have never been developed before. That's kind of the artistic creativity of comics. So I don't know. I'm just really excited for this material, and I'm glad that we have an opportunity to shout it out. I also remind everyone that they are a digital partner with iVerse and Comixology. If you link your accounts, every one of your purchases, 5% of that goes towards your DCB service order. So that already chops some money off of their already amazing discounts. And it doesn't cost you any more to do that. So please consider doing that over at DCBService.com. At InStockTrades.com. I'm a big fan of Animal Man. They have the Animal Man Omnibus hardcover there. It collects issues 1 through 26 and Secret Origins number 35. This is Grant Morrison's epic run, all in one massive hardcover volume. It's 712 pages, $75 regularly, 50% off, only $37.50 from InStockTrades.com. Remember, orders of $50 or more give you free shipping. James, what kind of a podcast are we?
That's a really good question. What kind of podcast are we? We are a spoiler podcast. We go in-depth into plotline, story twists, and whatnot of the comics we're discussing on this show. So if you haven't read the books, you may want to come back later so you can better enjoy the show.
Get kind of philosophical there.
We talk too much about the question.
Yeah, we sure do. You're right. It's like we're kind of in that place still. If your face fizzles right now, well, I'll know I'm in trouble.
Well, if my face fizzles right now, a lot of people will be very happy.
That's good. Well, they won't see it, though.
True.
Because we're an audio medium. They'll hear the cool sound, though. What do you think it would sound like? Yeah. So it's basically like you're opening a can of pop.
Yeah.
All right. Without further ado, let's talk some comics.
Through the magic alchemy of nature's most awesome sources of energy, Ray Palmer, atomic physicist, becomes the atom.
Jim, our first discussion is we're going to be beginning a discussion about Trinity War, starting with Trinity of Sin Pandora #1. Ray Fawkes is the writer, Xander Cannon on layouts, Daniel Sampier, penciler pages 1 through 7 and 16 to 20, Vicente Fuentes, inker on pages 1 through 7 and 16 to 20, Patrick Zerker is the artist on pages 8 to 15, Hi-Fi on colors, Desi Siente letterer, Ryan Sook cover, Pasquale Ferry and Brad Anderson variant cover, Harvey Richards associate editor, Will Moss editor, and Brian Cunningham senior editor. And apologies for any name butchery. This was a cool book. I think one of the things since really Flashpoint, when we were first introduced to Pandora, there's been this developing mystery of the Trinity of Sin. And now we've had like a big focus series on the Phantom Stranger, but now we're getting to really take a strong look at Pandora, who's a character I wanted to know more about. One of the interesting things I thought about this series with Pandora is this idea that does she really deserve the punishment that she's been getting? Because it's like, what happened to Phantom Stranger? I get it. The question's still a little up in the air because he still remains a mystery.
He's still a question.
He's still a question, absolutely. But I'm pretty clear that he probably deserves what he's getting, I think. But Pandora, I'm kind of on the side that, wow, the punishment is nowhere near befitting the crime of curiosity. Where are you at on this character and the book in general?
Oh, well, first off, the character, you and I are echoing same thoughts. She was the one that I was really kind of curious about. It's, as we said, the Phantom Stranger, you get, once we realized who he was, we're like, oh, okay, yeah, he's got it coming. Okay, yeah, we're done there. But now with her, because it's the whole myth of releasing the sins of man. And, when you hear all the different legends, she was this girl who did what she shouldn't have done and yada, yada. But in the way they're telling the story here, she was just a kid who's walking along, saw something, hey, what's this? Picks it up, and boom, releases all of the evils of the world. She didn't sit there and think, hey, let me do this. She honestly was an innocent victim in this whole matter. And I did like the fact that eventually we did get the wizard with pretty much his death blow, admitting he was wrong, admitting she should never have been punished. But again, that's kind of too little, too late. That's a centuries and centuries upon millennium of suffering she's had just because of what she did, and we still don't really know who put the skull in her path, who designed the skull, there's still a giant puppet master behind all of this that we don't know who that is. And I kind of like the fact that we're getting the answers to her, we're getting these mysteries explained and unfold and whatnot, but there's still something out there. There's still something left for us in the Pandora story as to who did this. And we may never completely know who did it. And it's, I think, kind of a neat way to deal with her is each one of them are the giant mysteries. And even as they reveal the solutions to these mysteries, there's still more out there.
It's one of the things I'm really digging about DC's magic/supernatural world is that it's a lot different than reading a straight superhero book. And I think it's adding something unique and fresh into the superhero universe. And I think this is the reason why over the years, as these books have come back around and they've been reinvented, and we're going all the way back to when they originally introduced, why they have such a cult fan following. I think it's because of the fact that they're just really unique stories. You and I are big fans of this kind of stuff in television and film and novels. So it's great to see this develop in a superhero universe in this way. You made an interesting point when you were talking about we may not know who put this in her path. Because are you taking it too on like that second page where you see that glowing, that's when it's first appearing? Like somebody deliberately put that there to draw her in? It wasn't laying there glowing?
Yeah, I'm completely thinking that whoever put it there, planted it directly there, was shining the light to draw her attention, getting her to do that. She was 100% played by somebody. And once we figure out who that final somebody is, that'll probably shed a lot of light on the Trinity and the nature of them. And I kind of have a theory, and it's going to sound weird, but I'm thinking we're going to get a time loop with her, that she is going to be the party who puts it into place, or it's going to be the question. The question, she's going to figure out a way to trap the evil in the skull. They're going to figure out the solution. The question goes back in the past and puts it into place. And that is the question's missed the sin and evil that he unleashed, is the fact that he's the one who planted it in Pandora's path. It's kind of a theory I have going. I'm wondering, I could be completely off here, but I don't know. I think I'm thinking somehow that the Trinity War is going to tie into her getting it.
Yeah, I also wondered if maybe it was the outsider that did it. But I like all your theories, because I think that there's a cyclical thing that happened here. See, and I'm not saying that I'm set on it being the outsider. I agree with your idea that she could do it herself. I agree that it could be the question. I was running through theories of people it could possibly be. And the only reason why the outsider came to mind is we don't quite know who he is yet. And so I'm kind of, as I wrap my head around theories on who I think he may or may not be, I was wondering stuff like that. Then I think other things about him, and that totally deflates my argument as far as why he even is a potential suspect for it. So I'm not really set on anybody. Your theories, as you were throwing them out, I'm like, yeah, it could definitely be her, and I could see a reason why she almost has to set that path in motion in order to continue things. The question idea would be great, and it would add, is that the reason why he doesn't know who he is? Because he would know his history and be able to say, hey, this isn't your fault to begin with. Yeah. I don't know. It's there's a lot to be said about who it could be. Do you think the question is going to turn out to be Vic Sage still?
No.
Okay.
I think the Vic Sage question is off the table here. Mm-hmm. And it's, maybe if whoever this person is, whoever this question is, once this is all said and done, maybe we'll get a Vic Sage question. Maybe we'll get the next hero to call themselves the question will actually be a hero, as opposed to what we currently have. There's always that possibility, but I do not think that this person will be Vic Sage. Now, what may end up happening is once he learns who he is, maybe that's who he is. Maybe when this is all said and done, we find out, that was his path, and there's so many maybes and whatnots and what ifs that could happen with these three. And I think that's kind of the neat excitement I'm having, that there could be a complete twist turn out of left field and we won't see it coming. And it's kind of neat and exciting that they're doing this.
I wonder if Vic Sage might be, similar how the Phantom Stranger has had a civilian identity, at least so far, and whether or not that civilian identity will remain as the series continues remains to be seen. But similar to how he's developed and taken the form of a civilian identity, I wonder if that might be how he becomes Vic Sage. Kind of really backing up what you're saying.
Yeah.
That would be interesting. I would love, because I'm really loving Phantom Stranger so far, first issue in, and I deliberately didn't read issue 2 because I know you just got your books today. I didn't read issue 2 of Pandora, but the first issue out of the starting gate, I'm very intrigued by this series. I would love one with the question. And I think it is something that would need to wait till after Trinity War, so then you could put this guy in a civilian identity and kind of, maybe have some more answers about him before we put him into his own series. I would love a question series, though. I hope that's something that potentially could be in the cards, because I'm finding him very interesting.
Oh, God, yeah. All three of these are, kind of neat, and I'm hoping when everything is said and done, they continue on within the universe. Whether they find a place maybe in Justice League Dark or Constantine or some magic title, but I'd like to see them continue, because it's, it's the magic world is. I'm getting more and more attached to it. I'm getting more and more comfortable with it, and I'm really starting to enjoy it more. It's now getting that kind of level of, especially with the characters, they're It's that they skate to the line, they barely cross it, or they don't cross it. They just right up there. Are they good? Are they bad? Are they? I'm good right now, but I could always very easily be bad tomorrow. And it's that ambiguity, that the unknown of the characters that make it kind of neat. Like going into a Superman book, you always know it's Superman. He's going to do the right thing. He's going to be dun-dun. Same thing with Batman. You know what Batman's going to do, but when we start getting this unknown with what your heroes are going to do, it adds to the story, it adds to the enjoyment, and it adds to my personal attachment to it because I start thinking of them as real people. I remember when Pandora was that shadowy female in the all the first issues, and we were scouring the book trying to find her. Oh, there she is! I found her! Yeah, and just for her to go from that to this, to a name, to a character, to a growth, a person, somebody that I feel sorry for, someone I want to see succeed. It's kind of a cool evolution.
Do they have to join a team?
No, but I'd like to see them around.
Yeah.
So I always throw team out first, just because I think with a character who doesn't have they're just being born here. We're just really seeing their growth and their development in these titles, and I think they would have a better chance of survival if they were in a team, as opposed to just throwing them into a book.
Yeah, see, my problem is a lot of times with them being kind of forced onto a team, and I'm not saying it would be in this case, because I do think there's certain ways that characters like this could be on a team, but it's almost like, to me, if you put all three of them on, whether on the same team or on different teams, it might become, depending on how it's not handled, it might become a little cliche, like, we've got to have one of the Trinity of Sin on the team. Although there could be a story explanation as to why that's the case, and I would be okay with it. I don't have an issue with that. I do want these books to continue. I think it's sad that we have to approach it that way. I think you've got a point there. I know what you're talking about. You're saying, exposure to the characters so people will continue to follow their solo series. So I get your point. It's kind of what they did with Vibe. You can't just give him a solo series. You've got to have him on Justice League of America too, and it's working. It's working really well because I like him on the team book, and I like how he's working in his own solo title. So that relationship really works for me, and that Katana's got the same thing with being on Justice League. But one of the things I like about Phantom Stranger and now Pandora is that these characters feel distinctly different. It's kind of like what works with Swamp Thing for me. It's a distinctly different kind of title. It's a distinctly different kind of book. You're not going to get the kind of story in Phantom Stranger that you would get in Justice League or Justice League of America. Yet, when this character now is crossing over into these books, now you've got the kind of story that you normally wouldn't see in Justice League or Justice League of America or in Phantom Stranger, because these are titles now that are intermeshing, and you've got characters that we've had really defined very well, behaving with each other, and it's cool to see that. So I would love to see them continue. I'm hoping that they continue in their own solo books and that we do get a question title as well, and that the people writing those books continue to develop books that are unique and different, whether they're on a team or not. These books have got to feel different and fresh in order to develop. I think they need to develop a cult following and make some noise that way.
Yeah.
We need more of that in comics, I think, with these books, to make them stand out and be a little bit different. The kid that she's tending to in the beginning, and this is, 8,000 BCE in prehistoric Macedonia. Is that her kid or her brother or what? That's never really defined, but she's there tending this kid, or is it just some random kid? Like, how did you take that? Because I was, wondering, is this her child? But then she doesn't mention a husband or anything, so I don't know, who it could be. I feel like it. Do you think it's a family member or something, or what's going on?
Oh, yeah. I took it that's her brother.
Okay.
Because you think about it, when she sit there singing, and then she goes, "Mother, you're back. The fever, it won't break." So I'm taking it that's coming. That's her mother as well as the boy's mother. I'm taking it as that's her brother.
Now Pandora opens up and releases the 7 deadly sins, and basically with the whole situation, she gets knocked out and goes back into her town. See, to me, right there, it's done. That's her punishment. Her entire village was wiped out. Like, what more punishment do you... That wasn't a hand slap by any measure. Her entire life was decimated. how could you be in a group judging people like her along with the Phantom Stranger? And we don't really know what Vic, or the question did. I keep want to call him Vic Sage, but we don't know what he did. How could you judge her as harshly as them? I just don't get it.
Yeah, I know. And it was something that I caught, and it dawned on me just within recent rereads. You think about all three of them are being judged at the same time, but hers occurred at 8,000 BC. His occurred 26 AD, and the question, we don't know when his occurred. So you've got dramatic time differences of their crimes committing at different times, but they're pulled right at that moment because she went right from the moment where her family was slaughtered and she's crying, and they pull her right then and there. So I thought that was kind of a neat, magic temporal, kind of time shift where they said, boom, and it could be because the Rock of Eternity is out of the time planes as we know it and whatnot, and mystic mumbo jumbo, etc., etc. But it was something that it dawned on me just recently when I was reading this. So we definitely have questions will be raised with when the question did his thing. And that's kind of where it got me started thinking, what if that got me the whole time loop, and that's where my path came from, thinking that he could be the one who puts the skull back.
Here's the other thing. She's also dropped right back where she left off.
Yeah.
Now, here's the part where I question the relationship, and I'm with you, it could be the brother. When we see her back there and she's buried her entire village, there's a special moment she has where she's singing the song again to the boy. That made me wonder, is it just a brother, or is it also this, and not just a brother, I mean, obviously that's a strong relationship, but that made me wonder, is this not her kid? Because of the fact that she just had that special moment where we're taken back to that. Either way, the relationship's a very strong and close one. And I thought that was something where, again, I was like, what more could you do to this woman? Like, that moment right there, I'm like, you were a little curious and you opened a box, not knowing what it was. Yeah, it unleashed this nightmare, but you paid for it.
Well, and she didn't even really open the box. She just picked it up and said, "What's this?" So it's, always adds to it. She didn't even, it's not like she went, "Oh, let me open this up and look inside it." No, she just picked it up and said, "Hey, what's this?" Boom. And that triggered the psychic linking and the third eye, and boom, everything goes to garbage.
Throughout history, then, they make this connection. They call her mother because she birthed them out of the world.
Yeah.
And throughout history, we see her going from place to place to place, including multiple appearances from Vandal Savage. I really like that. This is where a shared universe really works for me. When you've got characters like Vandal Savage, who, we've been seeing in books like Demon Knights and stuff like that, but also in DC Universe Presents, and then, this is a character that rich in the DC history. I love when you have characters like this that have lived through time, and you say, hey, who we got to put in this book? Vandal Savage has got to be there, because she would cross his path. And there was that unique moment between, I know I'm kind of jumping around here, but that moment they had between the two of them where he realized he's seen her throughout history, and that they have that common link. And this is this man who, kind of is all over the place. We've rallied behind him. We've wanted to smack him upside the head. Sometimes it's what seems to be a nobility to him, and other times there's just a savagery, and he's almost, egomaniacal in the way that he handles things, and pompous even. So he's an interesting character, and there's so many unique facets to him. But you have that special moment where he sees her as, hey, you're like me. And I know what that's like. I know the loneliness of that. I know the torment of that. We know the good, the bad, and the indifferent. He's really saying to her, I think he was reaching out to her to talk to her just as much as he wanted her to be able to talk to him. This opportunity to be able to vent to somebody who was similar to him, because he's even referenced before that he doesn't have any children of his own that have inherited his gifts. So that's something where, in his storytelling, we've seen that with the character, and him reaching out to her like that. I just found that really deep and engaging. It was a good use of the character in this book. I love characters like this. Valiant did a character, and they're relaunching him into a new series called the Eternal Warrior, who is an immortal. His whole family was the same thing, and it's like Highlander and stuff like that. All the things that you and I are very into. These characters who don't die unless whoosh, the head goes. But I like that kind of stuff because these are characters who, while they feel contemporary and they can have friends in the whatever their quote unquote present day is in the book, American Vampire plays with this too. You see that because of that, there's also a disconnect that normal people can't understand what it's like to live as long as they have. They have a knowledge that they don't have. They have a history that they don't have. At times they get battle worn. Doctor Who does this as well. I love this kind of stuff. This is where my connection's coming to Pandora right here. And it was funny, those moments with Vandal Savage, when I reread the issue a second time, I had such a deeper connection to her than I've ever had before, because I'm connecting to her through other characters in throughout pop culture that I really dig and enjoy. And that's what's neat about this book. It's a great character. And I'm with you with your comments earlier that I want these characters to continue on after Trinity War because they're interesting. And I will want to continue reading her, whether she's on a team book. I want her in her solo book, though. So I'm with you. Hey, if putting her on a team book is going to get her more notice, yay, thumbs up. If there's a storytelling reason for it, I'm in. That's cool. But I definitely don't want to lose a solo outing from her because I'm already connecting with her in the first issue alone in a way that I haven't before. And I thought she was cool, don't get me wrong. I've always been interested in the character. I love an enigma. But now that I'm getting to know her and the brutal things that she already went through, I'm into her even more.
Oh, God, yeah. And, it was, for me, I liked the training sequences when they show her spending 100 years here, 50 years there, and just all the different magic and physical techniques, everything that she learned as time was going on. I thought those were kind of cool that they flashed to it, just so we could see she's had this long time, so she's been training. She's been doing her work. But the thing that really impressed me the most is whenever they showed her at the different time spots, and there's always one of the sins or something going on where it's, you can see the different sins manipulating men. I loved it when they had the multiple sins at the same time, especially like the war, where any of the battle sequences, they'll have envy and wrath. They'll have the various, a couple different, thrown in at the same time. So it's not just envy, wrath, pride, all at the same time. And it kind of fits when you start thinking about, what type of wars you would have. With the Crusades, they have the different sins going on at the same time influencing the Crusaders. And it was a kind of cool expression and a statement for mankind, that it's not just as simple as we would think. No, there's multiple factions going on here. And I like that they kept showing that and they made it all part of it.
I agree with you. That was stuff that I really enjoyed too. And I liked that it took her years before she began the training, like a long time, many years. It was really, she made this vow to try and stop them, realizing that it was, something that was beyond her power. It's because even in present day, like right now, she's still like dealing with the after effects of that. But I like that it was just something where I've tried so many things throughout many lifetimes. Because really for a human being, that was many lifetimes she's lived through. What keeps you going? That's what amazes me about characters like this. Because in life, I can't tell you how many times, just speaking to our own friendship, where, a passing conversation that we've had when I've had a bad day, or when you've had a bad day, or, good things we've been through together, things like that, that helps keep your life going. And that's just one friendship. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The amount of people that you encounter in your life that are special to you and add some different facet to your life. I could make the same, arguments with my wife, and then with my mom and my dad and, my stepdad and all that thing. Every these people that touch you, she's disconnected from all that to a certain extent She's having these people who are training her and things like that, but we don't see her throughout history building relationships. I would be interested in, like, if the issues would every so often jump back to what life was like for her. Did she build relationships there? Were there friends? Were there people she associated with? Or was she so driven that she could never have those relationships? I'm insanely curious about her. I don't know what path the series is going to take after this whole thing's over, but I wouldn't mind an occasional issue or an annual or something with her where we get to see more of her past, if it's not going to explore that in the series after the Trinity War.
Oh, God, yeah.
Because it's fascinating when you got a character like this.
Yeah, and it's funny, as you were talking, yeah, I'm sitting here nodding my head going, yeah, that would be what you could do with the Pandora solo series. You could show her in these different time periods. You can show her whether she did have these personal relationships. Because of all the characters, she seems like she was the most, alone. It looked to me like all she was doing was just working. She wasn't enjoying. She wasn't living. The whole time she was struggling to fight this evil that she unleashed on the world. And I see her just as the constant training, but it would be neat to get little glimpses and periods of her life. Now, I would imagine that when she gets these moments of happiness, when she gets these moments of life, it's probably going to end bad for her. I can see one or multiple sins showing up just to ruin her life, just for the fun of it.
Mm-hmm. Or, it being one of those things, yeah, you're right. It could be that. I could even see some of them where they would do it out of jealousy. Yeah. Of her developing a life and them wanting the attention on them instead. I would imagine each sin would react differently to her having a life. So there's a lot of story to be told there with the character. Whether they go back and do that or not, I don't know. I don't know that it matters, because you could have the same argument in present day. Although, who knows what's going to happen to the sins in present day.
Yeah.
It's a very interesting title right off the bat. Was that Robin Hood that was training her the bow and arrow? Or was that meant to be like a Robin Hood-like character, obviously?
I think it was meant to be a Robin Hood-like character, but I don't know if it actually was Robin Hood.
Yeah,
because that was the thing I was trying to figure out with the time periods, and they shifted it from BC to BCE and ACE, and I'm like, wait a minute, hold on, because Robin Hood should be, well, depending on which legend you go with, he's like, around the Crusades. So that's, it's one of the main legends. It was right around the Crusades, but other have him in like the 500s or the 1100s and the different time periods. So I'm not 100% certain as to if that was, but I assumed that that's what it was supposed to be, or, because originally I was thinking it could be maybe William Tell, but William Tell actually was a crossbow, not a bow. So it would be, I would guess that was Robin Hood it was probably a nod to him.
It's really a great first issue, though, because right out of the starting gate, I immediately wanted more. And for me, that's always a very good sign for a series where I can sit there and say, I really enjoyed the first issue, and I just want to see more. I want to know more about the character.
And next discussion's on Justice League number 22, Trinity War, Chapter 1. The writer is Jeff Johns. Pencils by Evan Reese, with inkers Joe Prada and Onclair Albert. Colors by Rod Reese. Letters by DC Lettering, with Evan Reese, Joe Prada, and Rod Reese. Covers Brett Booth, Norm Repmond, and Andrew Dalehouse on the variant covers. The assistant editor is Kate Stewart, and senior editor is Brian Cunningham, with Superman created by Jerry Siegel, Joe Shuster.
What an amazing kickoff. It's one of those things where I've been looking forward to an event. And I know that's kind of an unpopular thing to say, but, we're 2 years in now, to the DC universe with this new 52. And we've had a lot of really strong character development. it's time to shake things up, get things going, make a mess.
Yes.
Because the great part is when you make a big mess, it's how do the heroes react to that? And I think at this point we need to see that. How do they react? And not only how do they react to the mess, but how do they react to each other? What are those relationships like? How strong are they? What can tear those bonds, and what brings somebody to want to reforge them afterwards? There's all kinds of different ways that this is going to go, all kinds of different reactions to this, and I'm excited for it. I think it's a really interesting way. And I like that they're using this as an opportunity to do this Trinity War event and then build into a really strong month of just developing their villains. Saying, okay, we've laid out a whole bunch of heroes for you. Let's go to some of the classic core villains that you know, and some newer ones, and really lay them out strong for you so you understand their motivations, where they're coming from now, how they relate to this world now. Bring the heroes back and really do some cool stuff. And bring the heroes back to a world where now they have to react to each other, differently because they've been through this. To me, an event only works if it has a resonating impact, where afterwards we as readers feel like, wow, everything's fresh and new again because this event happened and things have changed. And our heroes now just have to react to that. And we're going to see books after this that are going to jump to the end of, I know this is going to the Forever Evil event. I'm ready for this, though. I like this kind of stuff. Can it be overdone in comics? Absolutely, and I get the people that make that argument. But you've got a universe now that's gone for 2 years, and while we've had some crossovers where they've been stuff in title lines and things like that, we haven't had an event that really is going to have a resonating impact on the whole entire universe as we know it. I'm so ready for this. I want to see everything shaken by this. And, see, some titles that need kind of a boom. Yeah. To get that. And it's always fun when these things happen because I think writers in a shared universe have the challenge then of saying, okay, I've got to take my story that my readers have been following, and I've got to make them feel like this event impacted my book. I know that can be very frustrating probably for writers, but you know that when you're coming on board of a shared universe like this, these things are going to happen. That's part of writing for, a Marvel and a DC, is this is a shared world. So you've got to react to those things and deal with them in a way that, to me, I always admire the writers that can do this and the creative teams that can take a book after something like this and without dropping things that they've given us before, because that's a key to me as well, show an impact of this type of event on the characters. So I know that that's just something that's going to come from all this. I've been excited for this. I'm ready for it. I'm glad they didn't start with it. Now I'm ready for it. I don't know if you feel the same way.
Oh, God, yeah. Yeah, I'm sitting here, and it's as you're talking, I'm just kind of nodding my head, going, yes. This is it. This is cool. This is good. One, story-wise, this has been an absolutely fabulous story being told, and just how it's laid out. I like the fact that we are dealing with in-title crossovers leading into the massive, standalone event. It's kind of like how that same feeling I had going with Blackest Night, where we had all this stuff going on in the Green Lantern universe, in the Green Books, and then we get hit with Blackest Night. Then we get with this universal-wide event going on. So there's been plenty of build to it. There's been plenty of growth and development of the story, of the plot line, but it's going to kick it in, to another level when the actual, Forever Evil series starts up. When it starts going, all this groundwork that we're getting, all this great storytelling that we're getting is just the build for that. And I think that's kind of a neat way to look at it and a neat way to deal with it. It's, you have your Trinity War going on, which is a major crossover event, but then we have the universe, level event feeding off of this. And I think that's going to be a great way to do it. And I'm very excited for the Forever Evil.
We have to escape. We have to save him. Madame Xanadu is visiting her shop by this woman. And as she's telling the fortune, it's revealing to her the future of this Trinity War, a very bleak future that we're seeing, with the Trinity facing this absolute destruction that's laid out in front of them. Who is the him? Who do you think it is?
I don't know.
I was wondering maybe Billy.
That was my main thing because I have not met him, but I know who he is and how wrongly he was chosen. And that's kind of the whole Billy thing going on there. But when you start thinking, I don't know. And then again, I do lead towards the him of what if the him is the question. Mm-hmm. Because that's, again, every time there's a mystery, you're going to find me throwing in, what if it's the question? Because he is such a mystery to me, and I want to tie him. I wonder how he's going to fit into this mess.
Because when you see the card and she flips it over, especially after that moment, that's what led me to believe that. I don't know that I'm necessarily 100% sold that it is Billy, but I really love the way that they've brought the Shazam concept into the DC universe. Like, that's a character who I'm hoping gets an attach rate this way, because I think they've done a nice job of taking classic Captain Marvel, classic Shazam, and working him into a way that works in this world. And yet, without throwing out the window what makes the character cool. Like, Billy's obviously been modernized to more of a today sensibility. But it's funny how, from the gruff exterior you get from Billy sometimes, at his core, I feel he is the same Billy Batson. Just that this world's a little different, so he's got to react differently. Kind of like what we saw in Man of Steel with Superman. Mm-hmm. Where he still feels like Superman. You know the character, you identify with him as Superman, but because the world is more modern, he is a little bit changed because of that, without throwing out the window that he still feels like Superman. I think Jeff Johns has done a really great job of crafting Billy Batson in the same way. I grew up loving this character. I loved the TV show. I had the Viewmasters. I loved animated series with this guy. I loved seeing different, variations of Shazam, his own Power Shazam book. This is a character that's important to me. And I'd love to see him, just really with his history, with how old the character is, I'd love to see this character enjoy a resurgence, to the level that really he deserves for how long he's been around.
Oh, God, yeah. This has been, the exploration of Billy has been really cool for me. I've, enjoyed this. And again, he does have that gruff exterior. He does have that, but you think about it. A kid nowadays go through what he's gone through. He wouldn't be golly gee willikers, but he still has those kid moments. You think to the point when, in this issue, when he's fighting Superman and he punches out Superman, he's like, wow, I just punched out Superman. That right there was a little kid reaction to something really cool. And it had me chuckling. But you think back to why he was actually over there. He went there to scatter the ashes of Black Adam. That a bad guy, even a bad guy, deserves to be buried. There is something, that this guy deserves. It's not just, it was Freddie saying, hey, the house has 2 bathrooms, flushing down the toilet. But he's like, no, I got to do something. You got to do right by this guy. And I think it's that code of honor. And it's, underneath the gruff exterior, there is somebody of principle, but there is still a kid. There's so many factions to Billy and to Shazam that I'm happy that they're doing this stuff.
I like that there's a reason he connects with Black Adam, because of his life experiences. He gets like, and feels like there's a brotherhood, an affinity with him because of his story. He connects with that. He's like, I get why you are the way you are. And he tries to connect with that humanity in Black Adam, which is something that I find that's interesting. And I think that's really cool that he hasn't given up on that. A lot of times, to me, that's the mark of a hero. When when like these atrocities occur around you, there's that part of you that tries to connect with your sense of goodness and humanity at the core of everybody, instead of being a pessimist and feeling there's no way this person could have those qualities. He sees through Black Adam and believes there's a spark of something in there that he can connect with. And even if, he really truly feels that he's dead, obviously in this case, Billy feels he's dead for good in this case, we know otherwise, right? Because there's just no way that's going to stick. But, and obviously we know because this character is going to appear in the Evil Month. This is something, and actually that miniseries as well, because he's having the bromance with Sinestro coming up.
Sinestro.
I really liked that Billy was so driven to do this. That honor, that sense of honor, that's where I'm saying he feels like the same kid to me when you cut through all that. Because I don't know when I was his age that I would have done that. I really don't know. I'd like to think I would. I'd like to think that I'm the kind of person that would. I don't know, though, at that age that I would have done it. I liked that he had this like team of advisors, his family members. I want to read this monthly. Like, I really like this group. Immediately when they came on board, I was comfortable. I feel like the development of the characters has been so strong that I hang with them. And I want to read more of these characters together in a monthly title. Like, the setup's perfect. They've got the book. It's ready to go. Get it out there. I want to read this monthly. I can't be alone in that. Because this is just great.
Well, you're doing a podcast with someone who's echoing your sentiment. So there's others out there who would definitely hang to a Shazam solo series. And I do like the fact that they call him Shazam, not Captain Marvel. I know that traditional name is Captain Marvel and all that, but it was something that always just kind of had me thinking Captain Marvel's a DC character. Shouldn't he be a Marvel character? Let's just move on that. Yes, I know DC had it first. They had the claim to it first. Come on, just let that one go. Give them that.
Well, I don't know. Actually, that'd be. I don't know when DC purchased how that all worked.
Yeah. Well, I'm assuming DC had it first, because if Marvel had it first, I can't imagine they'd say, "Oh, go ahead."
No, Marvel.
Use the name.
Well, I'm talking about Marvel Comics being the name.
Right.
Well, though I think there was lawsuits over it. Like, that was something that, like, you didn't. I know that there's and I'm not going to do the history well because I can't pretend. At one point in time, I'd read up on it. It's so out of my head at the moment that I'm not going to do it justice right now. And somebody listening to this is like banging their head against their iPod, knowing the whole story. And actually, if somebody wants to call in and tell us it, or put it on our Facebook group or something like that, I think it'd be really cool to know the history of this. Because I would love a refresher on it. There were lawsuits relating to it. There were lawsuits between DC and Fawcett over the similarities between Captain Marvel and Superman. There's been throughout history lawsuits revolving around this character because of names and things like that. Personally, to myself, like, this Captain Marvel does not make me think of Marvel's Captain Marvel. And I like Marvel's Captain Marvel, so that's not a knock on the character. I don't think calling this guy Captain Marvel confuses me in any way, shape, or form. I like him being Shazam, so I'm with you on your saying he's Shazam. I wouldn't mind if he, though, was, like, referenced as both.
Yeah.
I guess to me sometimes there's a certain element of silliness. I think in the naming of characters like this, especially with the rich history, it's like, come on, you're really going to dicker over this. Right. I don't think it takes anything away from either company's properties when you've got a character like this named. I get why you'd sue over it, but, like, really? At this point, I would say the rich history of the character should take precedence over. It's kind of, well, let's use another example that you and I will connect with. It's like WWF versus WWE. Yeah. Like, when I'm watching wrestling, I've never once gotten confused that it might be the World Wildlife Fund. You know what I mean? I think there's a certain point in time where, and I don't think that they've cost the World Wildlife Fund any money because they had the same name. So it's that sometimes there's a certain amount of silliness in the things that become, in the things that become legal battles in situations like that. So I think Captain Marvel is one of those cases myself. I think the character's unique enough that it just, I don't see the problem.
You know what? Here's something that just popped in my head. Literally, while we're talking, it just came to me. Mm-hmm. The reason why Billy has to call himself Captain Marvel, and I'm guessing Billy's going to say, "My name's Captain Marvel." Yeah, because it sounds like a name a little kid would come up with. I think that would be very appropriate for him. How does he introduce himself? Hi, my name is Shazam. Bam, he's now a little kid. Oh, shoot, I'm Shazam again. Bam, he's an adult. He can never say his name.
Yeah. That's a good point.
So he's got to come up with a different superhero name.
Right. Give him a big S.
Yeah.
And you can't confuse yourself with Superman then.
Yeah, there you go. Another problem.
I'm going to be 100% honest with you. I've never thought of that. like, in this whole scenario, what problem being known as Shazam makes for him. Because it's the secret word. And here's the other things, too. It's the worst. His secret word is the worst kept secret around. He wears it like a badge of honor. Well, although I guess you could make the argument the best way to keep a secret is throw it in front of everybody's faces. That's really funny. Yeah, that's it's well, and we know the secret word doesn't work on just anybody. You have to be connected.
Yeah, I know. I've tried multiple times.
Yeah, I got to be honest with you. As a kid, I tried all the time.
Heck, I did it yesterday.
Yeah. Did you watch I know we've discussed this before. Did you watch the show at all as a kid?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah.
I'll be honest, I wasn't a loyal follower of the show for some reason, but I did watch all of the Electro Woman and Dino Girl and all the different stuff that came on around that same time period. So I was watching it, but I to be honest, I barely remember the show.
Did you watch ISIS too? Do you remember ISIS?
Yeah, I watched ISIS, and again, another one that I barely remember.
Yeah, I remember the crossovers between the two of them. I remember it more because I've seen, like, they did reruns on TV Land for a while, and I watched a few of those. When it was on, I watched it like every weekend. Every Saturday it was on. I watched it. I watched that and ISIS, and the crossovers between the two and stuff was great. But could I quote things from it? I remember him driving around in a Winnebago with Mentor. Yeah. That's was basically what I remember. I remember more from seeing, the reruns now, and then Barry Bostwick, I guess. I'm trying to remember the name of the guy who played the first Captain Marvel. He had a DVD when he was doing signings, and I ended up buying it. It was episodes on DVD that had the morals in it still. Because he'd fly down at the end of the show.
Yeah.
And it's probably one of my favorite parts, only because you always wanted to be one of those kids, like when Captain Marvel flies down and he's talking to you as a group. And, it was like One to Grow On before One to Grow On. It was cool. I mean, that kind of stuff was neat. So it's a character that I have an affinity for. I really like the character. But it goes so far back into my childhood that I'm with you that I don't remember the show as much as I remember his comic book appearances afterwards. But he's a character I'm glad that they've made such a focal point in this, because it really makes sense with where his powers come from, and the fact that the Wizard was one of the people that condemned the three.
Yeah, he's thrown right into the mix of this, and he is a kid, and I do like the fact that we see that. But the one thing that I loved about this issue was everything that started with the Superman stuff.
Yeah.
With Pandora going to him saying, the purest of heart, there is no corruption in Superman. He must be the one who can do this. And not right, and just everything just starts going from bad to there. And I loved seeing, evil, quote unquote, or corrupted Superman, and just everything how it played out. And with Diana and her immediate, it's not just a colleague. This is not just her friend. This is somebody she's in a relationship with, so she's very protective of her, and he's equally protective of her. So it's kind of a just that multiple oh my god moments of this is going to escalate quickly. And you think back to when they first got started, when they first started dating, the people were like, I don't know if we like this. Bruce had his issue because he didn't have a countermeasure for Diana. His countermeasure was Superman. And if Superman's in a relationship with her, that could lead to a problem. Mm-hmm. So it's, and then you even think back to the Time Traveler Booster made an appearance. He tried to prevent them from coming together. So who knows, where that's going to go, what's going to happen, and we're seeing where this could lead to a problem down the line. And I like that fact that it's more than just two powerful people in a relationship. There's something that could have more serious effects for the universe.
One of the things I like about the relationship between them is we get these moments where there's a debate over killing.
Yeah.
Diana's very comfortable. She comes from a warrior race. Her viewpoint on it is, with I've got a lasso of truth, I know if the person's guilty or not. So there comes a point in time, and it plays into a lot of contemporary thought about death penalties and the death sentence and things like that. We've seen a lot of people on death row who don't belong there. in the sense they've been found, like new evidence shows that they weren't the person. But we've seen just as many of them that, like, why do they have a life sentence? What are we doing? And that debate is so subjective from person to person and case to case. It's an interesting moral conundrum. And I'll be honest with you, there's times where I feel very strongly pro the death penalty, and there's times where I feel just as strongly the opposite way. So I guess I'm technically very in the middle when it comes to it, because I think there's been too many powerful arguments that I've been presented with, which is why you need to, really keep re-examining the laws to make sure that we don't do harm to an innocent. But at the same time, how do we show justice for those that, really commit these horrible atrocities? I don't know what the answer is. But that debate in comics between these two iconic characters, to me, feels very rich and very contemporary right now, because in our news, in our media, these are debates that are going on right now. And I love when art imitates life like this, and in just a couple of pages they do an amazing job of this, where they jump back into everything that you're just saying, and I love that. That's stuff that I just really dig.
Oh God, yeah. And I think I stand on the, I am pro death penalty, but I'm not a monster. I'm not like, he jaywalked, kill him. You gotta have a level of nastiness to it, and there's gotta be the law behind it. And I'm not pro vigilante killings. I'm not pro taking the law into your own hands. But there is that level. And you think about just with Diana, it's one of the things that the modern Wonder Woman, the more recent stuff, and that I've started reading since doing the show, why I really connect with the character, why I really like the character, is because there's a lot of just that, I'm on the same wavelength with her on a lot of stuff. If I was, in this superhero universe, I would be backing Diana saying, lasso of truth, we definitely know this guy is a bad guy. This guy is definitely a killer. Okay, let's do it, But as I say that, I respect, Superman. I respect the code of the Bat. It's things that I like seeing in those heroes. I like seeing in the superheroes that they don't cross that line, that they don't go that far. So it's a neat inner turmoil that I have whenever I'm dealing with these characters, because with Diana, if I see her take someone down, I'm not going to hate it. I'm going to say, okay, I understood it. Now, if she does it just for the heck of it, then yeah, I'd have an issue. But when Diana has to make the call, when it's that moment of, yes, I have to do this, I completely understand it. I completely back her on it. And it's kind of a neat, just a moral dilemma you get into. It is just inner questioning as what goes on in the comics right now.
And I love that stuff. Because to me, they shouldn't give you the answer as far as how you should think. It's situations that should make you think about and maybe re-examine the way that you think. I love that kind of stuff. Television does it, a good film does it, books do it, art does it. And it's something that I'm really loving about comics nowadays, is that comics are really doing it for me on a huge level, and I'm so into that. When I can really kind of think through just a simple couple pages like that. And then when you've got that moral dilemma going on, and then you have these two people where you're questioning those things as they're having that debate, meeting with Pandora, and you jump to Steve Trevor and Amanda Waller, it adds a whole new layer to the whole thing. Because there's times where I'm looking at what Steve and Amanda are doing, and I'm like, I'm into it. It makes sense. Why wouldn't you put these checks and balances in place? But then there's other times where I'm like, how are they any better? And aren't they more dangerous by how they're operating? Because they're going so under the radar, so behind the scenes. They're telling the public one thing, but they're really doing something else.
Yeah. And there is a level of distrust, that you have, that everybody naturally has towards secret government agencies. It lends to, there's going to be an issue, there's going to be problems. And, who's the true puppet master behind the agency? Who's actually manipulating all of this? Where and why is it, what's the actual truth behind it? Is it they want to have this security thing in case the Justice League goes bad, or do they want to take down the Justice League if they don't toe the line. If the Justice League doesn't follow just the ideals that America wants, or hey, we want our superheroes to fight our wars for us. We want our superheroes to do this. We want and if the Justice League says no, that's not what we're about. Okay, let's send in Justice League of America, take them down. What's the true motivation behind this team? And I like the fact that we really don't know. We won't know until it actually throws down. And even as the Trinity War starts going through it and the control they have over their heroes starts breaking down, there's still contingencies. There's still stuff in play.
Here's my question. With the whole Pandora thing that's going on right here, when she's telling Superman that you're the purest of heart, you have to be, we see Xanadu having her own commentary saying where she believes Pandora is the worst of the three. I'm talking about the three of the Trinity of Sin. And so did John Constantine. So, if she believes that, what is leading her to believe that? Because her story, I don't get how you would arrive at that conclusion. I could agree that, the impact of what she did could be argued as being the worst in this world, in this comic book world. But, I guess I don't get how you would look at picking that up and looking at it as being, you've done this. Because really, the box, in many ways, unleashed itself.
Yeah, and it's I'll be honest with you, when I first read this, I just assumed that they didn't know the backstory. They didn't know what we know about her, that all they're going by is what the wizard says, or what, history, or the, just the legends say. I read it that we as the readers have inside information. I could be completely wrong. Maybe she knows something we don't know.
I would love to know what that is.
Yeah, oh God, yeah. Again, it adds to the mystery and the coolness of Pandora as a character. If she actually is the worst of the three, then is it just because of the opening of the box, or did she do something else beyond that? Or is she, by her trying to seal the sins up, by what she's doing right now, does this make her the worst of the three? Is she opening the door for evil once again, but this time she's trying to seal it up, but in reality she's going to end up opening up the doorway, and she's going to end up doing something nasty? Is this, the best laid plans of mice and men often go astray? Is this, she's got these great intentions. She's got this great plan that she's going to, find the purest of heart, seal the evil back in the world, and save the world. No, she's not. She's actually going to destroy it. And do they know, does Xanadu and John know this?
Now, on one of the covers of one of the issues of, and actually Isaiah just posted this on our Facebook group, there is a cover in Forever Evil where Batman's on the cover with Luthor and that whole group. So the question is, who is that? Is that Bruce or somebody else? I'm wondering, is that the person that has been causing the problem in all of this? Because there's a mole.
Yeah.
Who is the mole? What if the mole is Batman? And that's not... Then that would mean that Batman is not Bruce.
I've been thinking that Batman's been the mole the entire time. Mm-hmm. And it started when someone broke into the Batcave and got the kryptonite ring. I honestly think Bruce is under mind control. And I'm assuming he's under mind control, and it's not somebody else. That it's actually Bruce, but he's under mind control, and he's, the puppet, and they're playing the strings with him. And I'm not exactly sure who is the person who's pulling the strings. And again, it adds to the outsider, because on one hand I was thinking, okay, that's Alfred from another Earth, but then I'm like, what if it's this Alfred and there's something twisted and corrupted that's got Alfred and that's got Bruce?
What if it's Owlman?
What if
it's this world's Owlman?
It could. What if it's this world's Owlman? It could very easily be. I don't know. There's a lot that it could be, but I honestly was thinking that Batman is the mole from the beginning. Well, not from the beginning, but as things start playing out and as we start seeing it, I started thinking, okay, this is. It would be a great swerve that it is Batman, and I think it's mind control. But again, Not 100% certain on that.
Is there any shot it could be that Talon that's his brother?
It could be. It could be.
And I mean, I'm not saying I'm
sold. Here's the
sold.
only reason why I don't think it's that, because Bruce would have put filters in and protective screenings so that he couldn't do what he's doing. Just like the same thing with Hush, where I was thinking, could it be Hush? Because the last we saw, Hush had his face, but is Hush around? Yada, yada, I don't know. But I started thinking, no, it's probably not, couldn't be Hush, because Bruce would have contingencies against that. And so that's why I'm thinking it has to be actually Bruce Wayne. Not Bruce Wayne from another Earth.
Why?
This world's Bruce.
Why not Bruce from another Earth?
Because I would think Bruce would plan for that.
How would he know to plan for that?
Because he's the Batman. That's how he would know. That's the only, and this is the sole basis of why I think it has to be our Bruce, because of that. I could very easily be wrong, and if I am, I won't have an issue with that. It'd be a great way to you bring in the other Earth, have it be the other Earth Batman, etc. But for some reason in my head, I always think, Batman is 2 steps ahead of everybody. He would have somehow contingencies for this.
Except that you're going on history where they were aware of other Earths. They aren't. That's not something that's present in the current DC universe. We know it as readers. There is nothing in this world that would indicate that. Because he has not encountered Huntress yet.
Oh, yeah, I agree. And that's why if I'm wrong and it isn't our Bruce, it's an alternate Earth Bruce, I don't have an issue with that because of everything you said. We haven't actually seen any evidence that would say Batman or Bruce should know about this. But because he's Bruce, because he's beyond, he thinks at a level beyond me, I would assume he would have thought of this. He would have thought of something with chrono, time, displacement, genetics, yada, whatnot, something like that. Bruce would have thought of something like that. And again, I could be completely wrong. If I am, I have absolutely no issue whatsoever with that because I think it's, it is a good storyline as well. If it's the alternate Earth, Batman coming in, great storyline as well.
I agree with you on his brother, only because he's aware of it. So the contingency would be there. So the second you said it, I'm like, Jim's right. I mean, he would have contingency plans in place for that. He would for Hush. All those things that you're saying, I'm like, I get that. And you're right on that. But if it is him from another world, I don't know that I agree with that. I don't know that he would know because there hasn't been that precedent set. All you would need is one appearance on television, and Bruce would be all over it. I agree that he would be one step ahead if he was aware there would be a reason to be. On any level, a minute level. That hasn't happened in this world. Like, the battles they've had with Darkseid would not indicate that there are other universes where there's a version of yourself. So I don't know. It's an interesting debate. And I'm not saying that it's funny, I'm like arguing for this, and I'm not necessarily sold that I believe that's it, because I actually strongly agree with your mind control idea as well. So I'm more fighting for the possibility that I'm mentioning than disputing what you're saying, because I agree with you on the mind control thing, because I think it's the reason Pandora's thing didn't work for Superman. I think this is a Dr. Psycho thing.
It's funny. We are in an anti-Kobayashi Maru.
Yeah.
We are in a no, lose situation as opposed to a no-win situation. If either story plays out, it'll still be a good story, especially with the Craftsman that's already been going on with we've seen. And to be honest, it could be option Z that we haven't even thought of yet. And we have no idea that it's coming. And, there's so different ways this thing could go that, it has me excited to read. When any of the Trinity War pops up, I'm jumping on it first and foremost. My box came about 5-10 minutes before we had started recording today, and in it was the second part of the second issue of Pandora. Right before recording, I ran out to the box, got my box, cut it open, and I was just about to start reading when you called. And we started up the podcast. So I literally, as soon as that box arrives, I'm jumping on Trinity War. I'm jumping on any of the tie-ins just because this is a story that it's really pulling me in, and it's telling a great story, and it's hitting a home run for me.
See, I find my reading experience changes with a good story as well, because it's not always an event, But I agree with you. All the Trinity War stuff I'm so into right now, I'm diving for that. But, like, if I just did catch up on a book and I've been really digging that book, that will be next issue that comes out, I'm diving for that right away. I just did a catch up on All-Star Western, where there was a few issues that I got behind on it. It's just, I'm reading a lot of books and I just got behind on that book. Nothing to do with quality. I adore that title. I'm talking about I was a few months behind on it. I just did a catch up on it, and when the new issue came out, I read it immediately because I'm so into the story of what's going on with Jonah Hex right now, with Booster Gold being involved in the book, and the fact that this Arkham legacy has been, throughout history, a part of the Jonah Hex story. I'm into all that. And that's kind of how things work for me. Sometimes I'll get behind on a title just because of work and life and stuff like that. And it's a book that I'm really digging, and I keep stockpiling it because I know, okay, when I get a chance, I'm going to sit down, I'm going to read this book and really enjoy, reading 2, 3, 4 issues of that title to get caught up. And sometimes when I get that behind on a title, like when I'm 4 issues behind or something, I have to go back another couple issues to refresh myself on the story so far. So I'm, really caught up with, when I hit that issue, I'm like, I remember the players in the game, because there was a Mr. Hyde story, Jekyll and Hyde story going on there. Mm-hmm. So I had to go back to the beginning of that story to catch up on that and then bring myself to present day on the book, because the events of that were influencing what was going on with Jonah Hex in a way that I was just really digging. I love that, but it got me so excited for All-Star Western that I know the next few issues that come out of it, I'm going to be grabbing it right away just because I'm very into that title right now. I had the same thing happen with Batwoman. Batwoman was the title I got behind because it wasn't a part of what was going on in the Batman crossovers. With a lot of the stuff that was crossing over with Damian and then, the Court of Owls stuff that was going on. It wasn't involved in that. So I got behind on that title because I tend to focus on, if I'm reading a big crossover event or something like that, I tend to read the titles that cross over because I don't want to get, behind on what's going on in the event or how it's influenced, that I'll grab all of those first and read them. That I got behind on that title. And boy, is that a good read, that Batwoman. That's another title that I'm catching up on that. Are you caught up on that book?
Yeah.
The stuff with her sister.
Oh, God, yeah.
I think is just plain amazing. And how that affects the relationship with her dad. The book is gorgeous. It's very well drawn. Even when they have, because it's interesting how the art works on that. Every so often we get an issue where, J.H. Williams will do the art. But, it's hard with him doing the writing and the art. And I know he's got another piece. He's involved in other projects that are coming up. So, you'll get different artists working on that title. What a great book that is. And her relationship with Maggie Sawyer is, for me, a highlight of that title. And I was so glad I got caught up on it. But another one, I grabbed the issue immediately when it came out again. Because having that double life and her trying to maintain a relationship is something that I really like. So, that's a lot of times how, you were mentioning with Trinity War, how that'll jump in there. Things like Trinity War are at the top of my stack right now. Batwoman, All-Star Western are at the top of my stack right now because I just did a catch up on those books and I've been really enjoying them. So I'm really, really into that title. I like the titles that are tying into Trinity War. As we're going to talk, and it's probably going to be next episode, we're going to be talking about Constantine. And that's another title that's tied into this book. And I like that you don't have to read it to enjoy it. But I like because the characters involved in the Trinity War, there's a point to taking an issue of his title and telling a side story that has impact on the Trinity War. That stuff I really enjoy. I like when they do crossovers that if you write your issue strong enough and you do a tie-in title that feels like it belongs in that series, but is affected by, the bleed over from the fact that your main character is a big part of something like this. Those issues have much more importance to me. We talked about this back on the show with Sinestro Corps War. When you had those Cyborg Superman issues where we're sitting there wow, this issue you didn't really need to read. But oh my God, if you did, you have a whole different idea on who that character is and what motivates him. Those type of one-shots and things when they're well written, I would rather have that than something I'm forced to get. something that I'm picking up because, you know what? If they're doing a tie-in, they're doing it because the author in question had a great idea for an issue that belongs a part of it in its own way. That's better to me than forcing you to jump from here to here to here, and you feel like that's a weak issue that's a part of the tie-in. Because we had that growing up with a lot of comic book crossovers, where you'd have that one issue of a book where you're kind of like, why is this part 6? Like, I don't really need to read this because very little of this had to do with the main story. It almost derails you when you do stuff like that. I prefer the way that they're doing crossovers right now. And I've got to shout out Trinity War because so far, every tie-in issue that I've read, while you don't have to read those tie-ins, you really feel like they're tailored to the book that you're reading. And I think that's really great. That's what you need. And that bumps them up the stack for me. So I'm with you. When I see something that's a Trinity War tie-in, I dive to that because of great writing. That's why I mentioned the other books that I just got caught up on that I'm really into. I jump to those books right away, and they're up there with my Aquamans, my Batman and Robins, my Batman, my Batgirl, Nightwing, stuff like that I'm reading. Those titles are just getting interest. Superman Unchained, is up there in that one. These are books that I'm really enjoying jumping to at the moment. And there's so much, we could, do a laundry list of them. But I like when I get titles like that. In Trinity War, you're right, that banner is really awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. One of the things that I thought was kind of neat in this issue, and it's been throughout all of them, how all the heroes are getting really good screen time. And they're doing a great job of breaking it down to different people. And, we're in the Justice League title, but Justice League of America characters are getting strong time. And when we read the Justice League of America, we're getting, the Justice League characters in there are getting equal time. This is a great usage of just that crossover mentality that it's both parties. And it's when you read the title, they all seem alike. They all seem like it's the same character. And granted, the two titles are written by the same person, but we have that third one with Jeff Lemire's Justice League Dark, where when I'm reading Justice League Dark and they have Wonder Woman or they have Superman or any of the other characters in that title, it feels like the same character that I'm reading in their regular titles. And I think that is a strength of this whole Trinity War tie-in, that this whole Trinity War crossover between the three titles, that you're really getting the same story. It really is a continuation of the story, and it feels, I'm comfortable with the characters. Now, I'm reading all three. I've always been reading all three. It seems to me that if you never were a fan of Justice League Dark, I think you could continue on the story without it, but I'm not 100% certain. And that's something, if we got anybody out there who is not reading all three of these titles, if you could let me know, I'm curious, because I do wonder about stuff like that. When you get these crossovers, do you 100% have to read everything that's listed as Part 1, Part 2, Part 3, or can you make through without it?
I'm going to say right now, I'm going to play the argument that you have to. I don't know how you jump off of Part 2 of this and not go to the Justice League Dark issue, because that's not a tie-in. That's Part 3.
That's Part 3. I know. I think
you have to read. I mean, I guess you can skip it and just kind of figure it out on your own. And I don't think anybody can answer that right now because the fourth part isn't out yet.
Right.
You'd almost have to skip Part 3 and read Part 4 to answer that question. So I don't know that you can really, you can't read Part 1 and 2 and go, I don't read Justice League Dark, so I'm not going to read that. And I think I'm okay. They won't know until they try reading Part 4. So I don't know. I think you can get away with not reading Constantine, not reading Pandora.
Right.
But to me, with a storyline like this one, it's this good. It's fun to read those things because they kind of expand on the story. But I don't think reading that Justice League Dark issue, and we'll talk about that, when you read that Justice League Dark issue, I don't think you can skip that. I don't know how you do it. Because it really plays right off of the events that happen in the second part. So that really is truly Part 3 of this story. I don't think you can skip it. I mean, obviously for budget reasons, if you can't afford that book, you have to. And we're intelligent enough as readers that you can kind of fill in the blanks in your head. So I'm going to backpedal a little bit on that and say if you're just reading the two books, you can probably get away with it, but you're definitely going to be missing something. I don't know how you would do it. And feel like you're getting the whole thing. So I think it's different than having a tie-in.
Yeah, I know, and I'm kind of curious about that, especially because how tight this thing is going on from one to another to another. You kind of need to have that.
I like how Batman makes mention of the fact that when it goes to Kahndaq, and they're going to be heading out there, how Superman and Wonder Woman both set up this opening for Shazam to go to Kahndaq. Said, you guys appeared there.
Yeah.
You opened the doorway for this guy. So you need to take some responsibility for this. That was something that I really liked. I liked his argument.
Yeah. Oh, God, yeah. And it's part of the problem with the heroes getting involved in matters like that. Mm-hmm. You know, it's the argument, why is there any war if Superman's on the planet? With the power levels that Superman has, he could end war. Now, he would have to swoop in, you know, destroy all weaponry, destroy all things, and, you know, it would be a complete breach and violation of all civil liberties, but in the end, he could do it. Why doesn't he do it? Well, because he can't be about the local issues. He can't be about this. Even though he has the power to stop it, he has the power to stop these warlords and these, you know, terrorists and all these other, you know, bad people out there in the world who want to hurt innocent people, but he can't he can't cross that line.
I like that in this event when we get to see all these characters put together.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you know, you see, and I guess what I'm saying is you see them getting on the plane in Justice League of America, you know, these Justice League of America characters. And you see Catwoman debating, you know, as you got Batman's head like kind of over her, you know, we need to trust Batman. But yet she's the one who has been brought in to take him down.
Yeah.
That's stuff that I find very interesting, you know. And the people that are partnered. Is there anybody surprises you in the partnerships? Like, you know, Vibe taking on the Flash. I kind of get it with Vibe's powers, but Stargirl and Cyborg. How do you see that working out? Like, I'm with her. She's like, what can I do against Cyborg? Like, I really have a lot of confidence in Stargirl's powers because I remember her from JSA. I know this is a newer version of that same character, but the power set's going to be the same because Jeff Johns is writing her.
Yeah.
But I'm like sitting here looking at her and going, you know, why would you put her against Cyborg? And I'm curious to see that. Is there anybody that surprises you in these partnerships so far from JLA to take down the Justice League?
No, actually, I think we got a pretty good, you know, I'm liking the pairing ups and just where they're going and what they're going with. Now, nothing against Stargirl, but my money's on Cyborg in that fight. Just, yeah, I've read a lot of her, and I know she's got some pretty cool power levels, but this is a very young Stargirl, very inexperienced field fighter, while Cyborg is a bit tougher. He's been through the ringer a little bit more, and I think he's more of a seasoned veteran. Same thing goes with the Flash. I understand the Vibe powers, but Flash is a seasoned fighter. Now, I think the best pairing up is Hawkman versus Aquaman. Mm-hmm. Right there, that's a pairing up. That's like, I actually want to see that fight.
But isn't that a surprise in and of itself? Do you think using the more inexperienced ones because their powers are new and they're figuring that the veterans won't necessarily be prepared for them?
Well, on one hand, yeah, there's going to be, but I think on the other hand, it's more of a, you know, they're trying to, they look at the Justice League of America, Waller looks at them, the younger players, as somebody I can easily manipulate. Yeah. They really are puppet masters on Vibe, and he's got probably even more power than he realizes, but they're seeing the power potential. So I think that's the whole, you know, usage of the younger players. And also, you think about it, someone like the Flash, you know, he's going to have a hard issue punching that kid. He's going to have a hard issue fighting that kid. And same thing, Cyborg's going to have a hard time hitting Stargirl. So there is a little bit of, I do understand some of the pairing ups that you put in the younger people up against that, but there is going to be, you know, an interesting situation.
Now, I like the Aquaman debate Because Aquaman, we saw him in Justice League. I'm not Aquaman. I'm sorry, not Aquaman. Green Arrow. I'm still on Aquaman because you were mentioning him in Hawkman. So let me backpedal on that a little bit. I like the Green Arrow situation where we saw him in Justice League wanting to join the team, wanting to be a part of the team. And I feel like Green Arrow's been a character that I've really enjoyed his growth. A lot of what's happening with him is what happened in the previous universe with Supergirl. There was a point in time where I didn't like Supergirl because I liked her initial introduction, but then she was like so bitter and bratty that it was hard to like rally behind her. And then Sterling Gates and Idle took over the book, and they like revitalized the character without throwing all that out the window. And I think that's what's been happening with Green Arrow. From where he started off in the beginning, he's gradually grown into the character that he is now that's asking these kind of questions. Where he's sort of saying, I may not like them much, but they're heroes. This is not the right thing to do. So I like him here because I feel like if you take a look at his solo series, this is the same guy in his solo book now. Like, we're starting to see the character catch up in his team book appearances with who he is in his own book, if I'm making any sense at all. I really liked that. It's funny how just a panel here and there, and then what we see later on with the character shows the growth that Green Arrow has had as a mature character. I'm really enjoying him.
Oh God, yeah. And it's funny because you sit there and I see this, and as the fight is just beginning, as we're getting that build-up point, we get a pretty cool bashings going back between Billy and Superman and Wonder Woman, and just everything. How that that was a great setup and a great layout for this, but just the arrival of the Justice League of America, that 2-page spread, everybody's pretty much in combat form, ready to fight. I like seeing how this played out. I like this action sequences. This was something that was kind of neat for me.
Yeah, I think that's something that's pretty neat for the character. The battle, you mentioned this earlier, so we'll just talk about it real quickly. The battle between Superman and Shazam, I thought was just great. To me, that's a classic moment. You want to see these two powerhouses go up against each other, and just when Shazam thinks he's overtaken Superman, you get a reminder that he is, in fact, facing Superman and the experience of Superman in those moments. But it's one of those fights that almost you need to end because at the end result is they're so compatible in their abilities. They come from different sources, and you could probably argue on different levels certain elements of their powers skew one a little bit stronger here, one a little bit stronger here with this type of power. It was cool when that led to the kind of confrontation between them that never quite ends because the JLA shows up.
Yeah. It's again, those cool Billy moments, I just punched out Superman, and then bam, he gets knocked. And then when they finally got him down, like, I ask you again, what are you doing in Kahndaq? What business of yours, huh? Jerks. This is a little kid. I love the fact that we're still seeing that.
I like Zatanna's new costume, but part of me misses her Justice League Dark outfit. Because there was something about that with her being a magic user. Just kind of, she had kind of a gothic-y kind of real-world outfit that kind of fit her character. And I get why, like, when you graduate to being a part of this team, and especially the fact that she was leaving, like, Constantine and that old world behind her, it would make a lot of sense for her to say, with this new life, I also want to adopt a new look. Kind of freeing myself from the past, so I get that. But I just, there was something about that outfit that I really liked because they didn't go out of their way to do the fishnets with her. And I'm not saying I don't like them. It's a cool, it's kind of a Zatanna kind of thing. But I liked that when they revamped her for Justice League Dark, they didn't feel forced and beholden to give her those. They gave her a look that fit that book. And there was something about that outfit that I liked because of that, because they didn't go to the obvious place.
Well, and it fits for her when she's in the Justice League.
Yeah.
She has to change up the costume because she's among costumes. Now, if she was back with Justice League Dark or doing something else, she would have a different look to her just because it's the right outfit. It's kind of like the Batman argument that he's got different bat suits for different environments and different needs. Well, she's got her different costumes for her different situation. If she's just, kind of chilling and being more street level, she's going to have a more street level outfit. But she's hanging out with Superman and Batman and Aquaman. She needs to have, a superhero look to her.
Let me ask you a question. When we see the question in front of that board, and all of the avenues point back to Superman.
Yeah.
And who is behind the evil. What is going on there? Like, why is it all pointing back to Superman? Is it, because he's being controlled, manipulated, like the way you were saying with Batman? What is going on with all that?
Yeah, see, the first time my first read through, I read this as he's the whole manipulation, the puppet. Especially when you see him fry Dr. Light, and everything that starts going on in the rest of the issues, with everything that's played out. But there is that mystery. Is maybe Superman the mole?
I was just going to ask. Yeah, that's what I was just going to ask. I think you're thinking. Yeah, I don't know.
It's in the next issue, there in Justice League of America issue, there's a moment where I kind of see something, and it's when John is reaching into Superman's mind. You see that moment where he's like, "Thank you for another contact." Somebody says it to John, so it's like maybe John is being manipulated. Maybe John is being kind of leading astray. Let
me just do the creative team for that issue, and we can kind of organically talk about both books, as we go into this, because I think we're ready to jump into Chapter 2, even if we want to talk about the fight a little bit. But Chapter 2 takes place in Justice League of America number 6, and the writers are Jeff Lemire and Jeff Johns, Doug Mahnke pencils, Gabe Altieb and Nathan Earing on colors, Rob Lay letterer, Ivan Rice, Joe Prada, and Rod Rice on the cover, Kate Stewart, I should say, is the assistant editor, Brian Cunningham, senior editor, Superman created by Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster, and I forgot the inkers actually. We got Christian Alme, Keith Champagne, Doug Mahnke, and Tom Wen, and Brett Booth, Norm Rapman, and Andrew Dahlhaus on the variant cover. And Superman, of course, appears by a special arrangement with the Jerry Siegel family. So, interesting, we've got this fight going on between the characters. We had the reveal of the outsider in the end of the last issue. So these big events are coming to a head. The outsider, who do you think he is? I know we kind of talked about this in our San Diego news report. Have you had any change of thoughts on that? Do you have any solid ideas on who you think he is?
I wouldn't say solid, but right now my primary belief is that it's alternate Earth Alfred. Mm-hmm. That's where I'm leading. I don't think it's our Earth Alfred, because I'm thinking Bruce is under mind control. I don't think both of them are. I think our Alfred's Alfred. This is the alternate Earth.
Now, with the change that's going on with the question, who is he turning into? Like, in that third part of that panel, who is he turning into there? I'm talking about the first page of JLA number 6. Who is he turning into? Is he turning into Dr. Light? And if so, when did that happen?
No, I'm thinking...
Look at his head. That's Dr. Light.
Dude, that is Dr. Light. Yeah.
So why is the question turning into him, and when did he turn into him? When is he looking at that board? And is Dr. Light really dead?
Or maybe that is not the question turning into it. Maybe that's actually Dr. Light's head they're showing.
No, that's the question changing. Because we know the question changes. We've seen it.
Oh, yeah, okay, yeah, I see the smoke.
Yeah. I mean, it's the two panels. It's the question. It's actually in front of the same board. I mean, it says, until that day comes, I am the question. I am the man with no face. So... Or is it just, does he do that as he's thinking through a thought process? I don't know. I want to know what happened there. I don't think we're supposed to know at the moment, but that's an interesting mystery. I'm not saying that he's the one that was killed. I think Superman may have, in fact, killed Dr. Light. That may have been what happened. But it's an interesting conundrum there. Yeah,
because, I don't think he's... Because on one hand, he could have maybe somehow turned into the Dr. Light that Superman killed, but I don't think so. I think it's just because he's focusing on everything that's going on with Dr. Light he's turning into it. Or, because we do see later on, the question is inside Argus. Mm-hmm. Maybe that's how he sneaks into Argus, by being the body of dead Dr. Light, and he rides in on the morgue train.
Oh, yeah, good point.
Maybe right now, the swap out that we're seeing, because you go to the next page, the 2-panel spread that has the 2 different teams and the roll call and the cross, scratched out between Dr. Light, that bottom panel where we see Dr. Light's body kind of glowing, what if that's the question shifting with Dr. Light?
I don't know. That's an interesting question. Because the change happens... Mm-hmm. I don't know. That's an interesting question. It's interesting to see kind of the reverse of how the question normally worked. Because what used to happen before, Vic Sage would cover up his face with the question mask, and that was the way for him to have anonymity on who he really is. Now the question's kind of like this blank slate, and he's able to morph himself into whoever he needs to be in order to get from place to place and get involved in things. Has he done this before in the universe? And if so, when have we seen it? And is this going to be the? I guess I'm going to go back to my question: is Dr. Light really dead?
I'm assuming yes.
Okay,
but I'm assuming maybe he's not dead. He's only mostly dead. Mm-hmm. And I think he maybe is kind of going through a metamorphosis, because his power was that light and energy absorption, and Superman is a giant solar battery. So maybe it kind of, we're seeing an evolution of Dr. Light, and maybe he's not dead. Maybe he'll come back, and maybe this is how we get the evil version of Dr. Light. Maybe this is going to corrupt him somehow.
Yeah, I don't know. That's going to be interesting to see.
And the thing I've just mentioned before was with John and Cal. It's John reaching in there. Did someone poison your mind, Cal? Is that what happened? And then the next panel, you get another trophy for the collection. So is there somebody inside Superman's head right now? Or did they enter through John? Or is it what's going on with that?
Well, remember, that's the missing piece from that chessboard, too.
Right.
The Superman piece was missing. Yeah. And is that being used as kind of a voodoo doll or something?
Oh, could be. This could be a whole magic thing, because he is susceptible to magic.
Right.
But another piece for the collection. Is there a collector or something like that, supervillain?
I don't know. So that's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. I like when we see vibe. Well, I guess let me flash back a little bit. For who's is it for the Outsiders collection? I don't know.
Yeah. Actually, the Outsiders would be a good answer on that.
And I guess here's the question. If Superman's being controlled, does that make him the mole? Or is there a mole on top of that enabled that piece to wind up in the hands of whoever manipulated Superman? I guess we're making the assumption that if Superman's controlled, that makes him the mole. What if it's not? What if Superman and Batman have been controlled at various times? But what if neither of them are actually the mole?
Right.
What if the mole has a bit of facilitator of that, if I'm making sense?
Yeah,
which adds another layer to who the mole might be. It could be as simple as one of them being the mole, but what if it's even deeper than that? And that doesn't make them the mole. That just makes them a victim of the mole.
Yeah, it's funny because you start throwing out there, who is it, what could it be, and there are so many questions that are getting raised with this. And as this, I got to tell you, I'm just going back and forth between the two issues, just watching the fight sequence and just everything that plays out. I absolutely love these issues, And even though we get different art styles in each of the books, it's still great artwork, still blending together, and this is something I hope they put together, everything together in a nice absolute volume and whatnot. Because I love seeing Katana versus Wonder Woman. Just in that one panel, you're seeing her cutting. Katana, is cutting through the swords. You got Arrow, Hawkman, Aquaman throwing down. You got Stargirl and Arrow fighting with Cyborg, and then talked a little bit about Vibe jumping into the battle as Flash is doing his vibrate the hand, so he passes through solid objects onto John, which has to hurt really bad, but Vibe throws in his powers and hits both Flash and John at the same time. It's a really cool just action sequence that's playing out that I love this. This was a great way, and I loved how it ended with Superman finally saying, "Stop this right now." And just that one moment of reaction.
Well, especially because his powers are still blasting out of control.
Yeah.
So the interesting part is, if Dr. Light was causing it and Dr. Light's dead, why is it still happening?
Again, it's what is the corruption? Where did it come from? Because you think about just how he goes from this issue to the next issue where his body kind of starts deteriorating and there's physical issues that start popping up. There's something wrong with Superman. He is hurt. He is sick. There's something, some outside force taking him down.
Well, it was funny how you were talking about who would win between Vibe and Flash. We sort of get the answer there. The idea isn't that they would go one-on-one. The idea was in a team combat situation.
Yeah.
This is where having those people on the battlefield would help.
Yeah, and it's, in one hand, it's a complete sucker punch. Mm-hmm. But you know what? A sucker punch works. It's not the most honorable fighting style, but you know what? It does work. And we see right there with the Vibe powers hitting, Flash is down. Now, how long will he be down? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know either. I have no idea. I like it. We get this part where we have Waller and Trevor debating. And we get to see that while Steve Trevor's joined up with this group, there's a lot of Justice League still in Steve Trevor. And there's a lot of his reasoning for falling in love with Wonder Woman still in there and things like that. He's taking a look at the whole situation with Superman being under somebody's control and saying, hey, I need to ask more questions about this. This is not right, what's going on here. And I know Superman, this just isn't, there's something fishy. And I like that even though these two teams are distinctly different teams, not every member of the team is reacting the same way to everything that's happened. You actually see cracks forming in all of the teams presented in this crossover, where you can see how when this event is done, they can't be the same. Like, you're going to see members shift from one team to the other. We see it with certain members as the storyline goes on. We're seeing the battle lines being drawn, and that is going to lead to the formation of 3 distinctly different teams after this event. I love when this stuff is story-driven like this. Yes. And there's a philosophical reason in the book that you can kind of get behind, in some ways, all of the factions there. You can understand their motivations. You're going to probably have your own team that you follow behind. It would be interesting to find out. I'm actually going to put a poll on the website of, I guess 3 different philosophies. What would you say the 3 different characters are that have the lead philosophies? Constantine, right?
Yeah.
One philosophy?
I would say Steve Trevor.
Okay.
And I'm going to go Superman.
Well, where does Wonder Woman fall? Because she's kind of got her own thing. Because it's almost to me like Constantine, Wonder Woman, and Batman?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Are those the 3 different philosophies going on there that the other people would join up on? Because it seems to me like Trevor would join in on one of those philosophies. But which would he join? Would he partner up with Wonder Woman? Or is he more in tune with one of the others? I don't know.
I don't know. Yeah. Oh, God.
Let's decide at the end of this discussion.
I love this, man. Yeah. It's, again, it's you talk about just breakdown of the team. One of the moments I loved in this was that Trevor Waller discussion. Mm-hmm. And she's kind of finding the silver lining behind the death of Dr. Light. And he's like, Trevor just is, angry with her, but he does have to question her. You didn't have anything to do with this, did you, Waller? How could I have? Is her answer. Not no or no, of course not. It's like, how could I have? There's no denying it. Is Waller the puppet master? Every time I read it, I'm like, hey, what about this person? What about this person?
You know what? Let's do it this way. All right, so far we've mentioned names like Constantine, Steve Trevor, Batman, Wonder Woman, Amanda Waller. Who are people that you think in this event so far have had ideologies? Because, I'm going to put a poll up on the site.
Okay.
Who are the people you're most identifying with? So let's find out which characters people are identifying with, as far as who've really stood out at having a philosophy in all this. So who do you think so far? So you got Constantine, Steve Trevor, Batman, Wonder Woman, Amanda Waller have all taken stands, right?
Yeah.
Do you think Superman has taken an identifiable stand? Well, I guess, he starts to as this... So Superman?
I would say yes, but to be honest, it hasn't been as...
Pronounced?
Yeah, it's now starting to get pronounced. Before, he was, Superman. Dun-da-da, flying to battle, do what needs to be done. Now, I think as this is starting to play out, we're starting to get a little bit more. I think, it's a tough call. This is a tough call. I would throw Superman in there just because he is Superman, but one of the things, because you can maybe throw Billy in there, but his is more of what the heck is going on. I think as the story goes on, we're going to get a little bit more out of Billy. I think he's going to be the final key to this whole mess. But right now, I think we got the different characters covered. Or you can actually even throw in the Outsider as well, because he's got a pretty clear-cut ideology where he's going with this.
Yeah. So I think I'm going to put a poll up, and I'll leave it to other category for people who are because so far, I think with some people that are standouts at the moment are Constantine, Steve Trevor, Batman, Wonder Woman, Amanda Waller, Superman, Shazam, with the first confusion, The Outsider, but I'll leave an other category as well. Just kind of put up a poll just to see who people are, who are you most identifying with right now in the Trinity War, philosophically. It's kind of interesting to see, where these characters are coming from. And I'm assuming that they're all going to adapt on the time. Now, here's an interesting situation. Superman's asking the question, did Dr. Light have a family? Batman's there to kind of support him and really kind of throw out there, there's all kinds of ways this could have happened, and really kind of trying to help Superman get to the bottom of what actually happened on the battlefield there. And that's like he's handling it like a detective, but also like a friend and a colleague. Superman asked the question there, did he have a family? How do you not answer that? Doesn't he have the right to know? I don't agree with Diana there.
Yeah, see, I'm on Bruce's side on this one. And I understand where she's coming from, but if they had lied to him, it would have made things worse in the future. Eventually, he would have found out the truth, and eventually he would have known, yes, and you got to be upfront on this one. And it stinks, that it does kind of hurt him, and it will, saying it would hurt him. And you can kind of tell just the way he's laid out. And, the fact that he had to ask multiple times, did he have a family? Did Dr. Light have a family? And it's very defined before Bruce finally answers. And it's, kind of a soft-spoken, yes, a wife and 3 daughters.
Did the box corrupt Superman? I think he was corrupted before the box. I think that's why the box didn't work.
Yeah. I think there's something else. There's something else going on. That puppet piece that John saw was whatever the corruption was.
Diana goes to the weaponsmith of the Olympians to try and find out the origin of the box. And I like that, she's finding out that the legend is something, as often legends do, spurns out of some truth, but then you don't know the whole story. Pandora found it in a temple they built for me outside of Athens, but I did not put it there. No one knows where it comes from. This goes back to what we were saying in the beginning of the first issue, the thing you were mentioning. This thing just magically appeared there. Who put it there? That's the thing that we want to get to the bottom to in this story. Where did it come from and who put it there and why? because that's the person who set these events in motion, right?
Yeah, that's the ultimate puppet master. But again, that's what it does make me wonder if we're going to get that time loop that I talk about, where it's going to be one of these people from the future going back to the past and putting it there because of some reason. For some reason, we have to have these sins in the world. It can't, we can't have the world without it for whatever reason, whether it's, the nature of humanity or whatnot. I'm not exactly sure, but it keeps me wondering if that's going to be the deal.
Is Wonder Woman going to do we see her becoming a member of Justice League Dark after this?
I don't think so.
But does she identify with Constantine? I guess is one of my questions. That was my full question. Or do you think it's a marriage of convenience?
Right now, it's a marriage of convenience. She knows she needs magic help, and she knows this is who she needs to go to. But that's why I don't see her joining Justice League Dark, because I think she's more of, well, again, you can say she's more of Justice League, but in reality, she does kind of walk the line, and she does have a comfort with magic. What if she goes Justice League Dark, Superman is Justice League, and Batman is Justice League of America? Kind of like how he made his appearance on Justice League International before. What if that's, kind of how it ends up, playing out? Now,
the question is, he's on this constant quest for answers to questions, seeking justice. Is it seeking justice? Do you take it that way? Or is it just the answer to the unanswered questions, like who really killed Dr. Light? Is that the question on the table, or is it because it's a need for justice?
I don't think it's a need for justice. I think it is just, he's the question. He's always seeking the answers. Mm-hmm. And, the pursuit of knowledge is maybe his great sin. Now, how is that the sin? I don't know. Maybe he went looking where he shouldn't have looked. He asked the question he shouldn't have asked. Maybe it's, again, maybe he causes some paradox, by his curiosity and his inquisitive nature. Maybe that's his great sin that makes him one of the trinities of sin. I don't know. Again, it's that mystery behind the question is always kind of neat. But what is making Superman sick? Because you see it in these pages. His skin is thing, and he was having a hard time hearing Diana, and his powers were fading. Is it the box? Is it the helmet that he's dealing with, or is there some other corruption?
Would that be, is there kryptonite he's already being exposed to?
And he doesn't realize it?
Because I know Firestorm's creating more kryptonite.
Yeah. So
does that mean there's already kryptonite there?
Could be.
And he's just creating more to keep it going? I don't know. Oh, yeah. Is it the kryptonite? I don't know. I mean, yeah. I don't know.
Yeah, what is causing him to be sick?
I guess I took it as kryptonite. I don't know that I'm right.
Yeah, see, when I first read through this, I was thinking, okay, it's the helmet, it's the containment unit, it's all that stuff. But now I'm wondering if there's something beyond this.
Because Waller asks Firestorm to get on creating more kryptonite.
Right.
Creating kryptonite, I should say, in general. Did he already create some? Before we see him, create it in the Justice League Dark issue, did he create some already? I don't know.
Yeah, I didn't take it that he was able to.
I took it as kryptonite. I took it as kryptonite myself. I might be wrong though, so I guess I'm taking the sickness has come from kryptonite. But so I'll give that as my answer. I don't know that I'm right though, but that's how I was taking it. I took it as either he had already created his first attempt at kryptonite, or Waller already had access to some. I don't know.
I'm thinking Waller did already have access to some. Because I was kind of thinking that, but then I was wondering if it goes beyond just simple kryptonite. Because we do see him still kind of being sick after he gets out of the chair. But he kind of starts getting better, but I don't know.
Yeah, I think we'll have to talk more about that on the next episode when we talk about Justice League Dark number 22. Just to kind of debate more about it as we see that whole sequence unfold. Yeah. Because I think to talk about what his recovery looks like, and the fact that you're right, he does still look sick. Let's save that for our next episode. Jim, before we wrap up this segment, you mentioned that you wanted to talk about Batwing a little bit, casually. And we've seen a change in Batwing. David was previously Batwing. Now it's switched to the son of Lucius Fox. Yeah. And we've got new writers under Gran Palmiotti, where there was that shift. First of all, David, what ended up happening was David had realized that in order to fight the battle in Africa that he was fighting, he couldn't do that under the restrictions that being an agent of Batman put in place. He needed to be able to step outside of that symbol in order to do it. And that led for Batman to kind of go back to one of his original choices, which was the son of Lucius Fox, yet that comes with another problem. As Alfred points out, what happens if Lucius finds out? And what is that going to do to that relationship? That his son is Batwing. What do you think of the transition? What do you think of the new outfit? And what are your thoughts on the book in general? Because you mentioned that you wanted to talk about this kind of speeding bullet-ish real quick.
Well, when everything first started playing out, I wasn't completely happy with it because I really liked David. I liked the fact that David wasn't connected to the Gotham or Bruce, or he was an outside entity. And I liked the fact that they were doing it, with Africa and everything that was playing out. And even the ending, I was like, oh, okay, yeah, I understand that, but I still didn't want to see him go away. Because I liked the character. I liked what they were doing. I liked the fact that they could do different stuff. So when we first start getting the issues, I'm like, the first issue was like, oh, okay, it's talented writing and it's a good story, but I still was like, man, I still want David. I still want, I want my Batwing, And as the second issue played out, I was like, okay, you know what? I'm liking this. I'm liking where this is going. I'm liking him as Batwing. Just, you start seeing the different things that could happen and the different playouts and where they could go with this, what they could do with him, and just his connection to Gotham. You know what? I kind of like it. I do. He's not a member of the Wayne family, but there is still that connection, and it's, you are the Bat, so you're going to have it, but, it does leave for openings for him on international stuff and just, for Batwing being out there. So it's definitely a neat story, and he's a really cool character that I'm like, okay, I like this guy. I like him as a person, so I'm liking him as a hero. I'm liking mistakes made, learning from the past, and growing. Because, I want to see the family, and I'm thinking one of his sisters is going to figure out, that he's Batwing just because they're all super smart. And I think there's going to be something happen with that, and maybe his confidant will be his little sister or something that's going to play down the line like that.
I hope we get to know a little bit more about Lucius Fox this way, because he's a character who we've gotten to know through just so many Batman stories, but this is kind of more an opportunity maybe to see him from a different angle, to see the family life of Lucius Fox, which to me is very interesting. I like that he almost got caught. Yeah. Or I shouldn't say that. He thought he got caught when the bad guys started coming to his house. He thought, oh no, I put my family in danger. When in reality, what happened was they were coming for Dad. He's left in a situation where how much can I do to save Dad when I'm in my civilian identity? And how much do I reveal in this moment? And that was something that I really liked about how the whole scenario played out. That we left with that cliffhanger. We're like, you mean he's already been discovered? I thought that was cool.
But then they follow up with that where he goes to pursue the bad guys, and his mom's like, no, you got to stay here with your family. Mm-hmm. And he's like, I have to stay here. Shoot. And he wants to go after him. He wants to continue, but there is no logical explanation why Luke would go after him. So that's something where he's going to have to work on building cover. And that's where I actually started thinking of his little sister figuring out he was Batwing. Because I think that would be a neat thing where she figures it out and she starts throwing in the assist. Oh, Luke's still over there. Or she's giving the cover story for him. I think that'd be kind of a neat angle.
What do you think of the new costume?
I like it. It looks kind of cool. It's reminiscent of, kind of to me, it looks a lot like the Batman Beyond sort of, super high-tech armor, a different variations on the Bat costume. So, and the tech knowledge being, with these are super smart people developing this and improving on it. So, okay, I'm cool with it beyond, anything Batman's using, but Bruce wouldn't go that route. That's not Bruce's fighting style. This fits him. This is, the dependent more on technology is more of Batwing than it is Batman. So he needs to have that personalization to it.
I really like the outfit. I like its. You're right. I like it's a little nod to the whole Batman Beyond concept, but yet it's got its own flavor as well. I like the character. I really liked David before too. So it was funny how I wasn't like looking at this as we need a replacement for David. It's but on his own as a character. Like if I could still have a book with David, and they started writing about this character of Luke, I would want both, because I really have grown to, in a very short period of time, like Luke. I think Luke's a cool character, and I'm glad they didn't drop. I don't know why they made this choice. I don't look a lot of times to see, was this a sales issues or something like that. I don't know if that was driving it. Whatever led to the decision to kick, this into a Luke Fox book, I really like the character, and I'm glad they stuck with the Batwing concept to give us, another opportunity or another stab at this character type, because I think he's cool. I'm really into the character, and it's now, instead of being a look at a different part of the world, which I do think which I know I'd still like to see, we at least have an opportunity to see a different part of Gotham through the focus on the Fox family through this, and I really like that. So both concepts work for me, and I'm glad you mentioned it, because that was another book. Batwing for a while was a book that got stockpiled too, for similar reasons I mentioned before. It was a time issue. I do find that I have certain times during the year where life gets busy for me, and I'll have 4 or 5 books that I'm reading when you're trying to read the entire line that I just get behind on. And, I'll stay caught up on the books that I've been caught up on, but I'll have 4 or 5 of them where I'll stockpile them for a few months, and I'll have to, find a time to sit down and one at a time read those books. And those would be books that, they're not on the chopping block, but I feel the need to read to reconnect with, am I buying this for the right reasons still? And fortunately, with a book like Batwing like this, when you catch up with it, and the All-Star Western that I mentioned, and Batgirl, it's Batwoman, I should say. Batgirl I'm always up on. But Batwoman, those were 3 titles that I stockpiled. Having read and caught up to all 3 of them, I'm thrilled to say that, I won't be getting behind on any of those titles at any time soon. They're actually going to probably, if I get behind on something because life gets busy, it's going to be other titles, because I'm reinvigorated with those 3 books lately. Do you have that? Do you have different waves and do you find that the same books get stockpiled, or do you find when you get caught up with a title? Because I know you and I have had discussions before where you similar to me, life doesn't let you stay caught up with the books that you want to stay caught up with, and you get a little bit behind. Do you find that it's the same titles again that will go into the stockpile, or do you find that it's a different title that ends up taking its place because something captures you that wasn't there before?
It's actually a lot of times is some of the same titles, and it's part of the reason is the reason I'm choosing to let the book stockpile, because I'm I got to go with this. I got to go with this. So the Hunted, Jonah Hex, titles that I really enjoy, but because they're not completely connected into these big story arcs, or there's not an interconnection with the DC universe, that I can let them stockpile. Mm-hmm. I can let them grow, and I'm not going to hurt my reading. Whereas the green books, I will stockpile the green books until I have 1 issue of all the titles. So, Green Lantern comes out, Green Lantern Corps, Guardians, Red Lantern, Larfleeze. Okay, sit down, read them all in one sitting. Even though they're not running stories that are connected, kind of. They're still, even though they're starting to now, I kind of like having that bundle of all of them together. So I'll stockpile those that way. As I said, Jonah Hex, ends up getting stockpiled a lot, and it's not even just, I love when I'm reading, I'm this is a great story, this is awesome, I'm hooping and hollering, but because he's not going to appear in Trinity War, or because he's not going to have a JLA crossover or tie-in, because he really is, now granted now he's modern times, but when he was the old Western stories, I could put that aside. And Animal Man sometimes gets stockpiled for me, just because he does have his running stories, but he does kind of keep it separate. Suicide Squad's another one that'll kind of gets, for the exact same reason. So it's those titles are getting, stockpiled because I know I can read them, and they read better when I read 4 issues together. I read 2 issues together.
Mm-hmm. There's some books that like I know with my Vertigo titles, I tend to stockpile Vertigo titles because of time. Where I will, and I actually, here's the thing, Walking Dead, let's take it out of DC. Walking Dead's a book that I enjoy reading in singles, but I usually wind up reading 4 or 5 of them in a sitting because I let them stockpile for a lot of the reasons you're mentioning. But it's not that they're on the chopping block for me. It's more of a time issue. And then I find what you're saying, and it's funny, I'm connecting with a lot of what you're saying here. I find that with certain books, I'm like, okay, they're not, let's take it back to DC. They're not in the immediate continuity right now, as far as crossovers. I am finding right now, because this Evil month is coming up, I'm doing my darndest to get caught up on titles that I normally stockpile that are in the DC universe, because when that month hits, I want to be able to read everything. And I've got this crazy issue where I can't jump ahead to an issue if I haven't read the issues that came before. I don't know if you run into that. For me, I've got to read in chronological order the issues.
Oh, I definitely got to read chronological.
So this summer, I've been really going through titles that I've let stockpile and been getting caught up on them and greatly enjoying it. I like reading, at times 4 issues of something and just enjoying the story in that method, not having to, when the cliffhanger's at the end, I'm like, oh, I want to read the next issue and it's right here. I like that kind of stuff. So I'm into it. It's almost like I'm self-trading these books.
Yeah.
But I like the option of doing that. I do find that when a crossover comes up, or we get a month coming up where all the books are going to be kind of sidetracked into this, sidelined into this forever evil event that's going to be happening, that I want to get caught up so I can read each of those issues when they come out without having to have a delay.
Right.
So that's tends to be how that works for me. But Batwing was a title that I was stockpiling for a bit, not because of quality, just because, there's, when you're trying to read 52 books, or whatever the number is right now, because I don't think it's quite 52 right now, it's sometimes hard to fit those in to a monthly schedule, on top of the fact that I'm reading other books outside of that for other companies. So, and Vertigo as well, which is part of the same company. So it's hard when you're trying to follow those titles sometimes to always stay caught up. And I don't think it's a bad thing. It's just it's a different way of reading them. Well, there's certain titles I grab immediately. Batgirl's one. When the new issue comes out, I read it immediately. Trinity War, I read these immediately as they come out. Batman, I read immediately. I have certain favorite titles that I'm reading immediately. New books I try to stay current on. We're going to talk next episode about Green Team and The Movement. And those are titles that, because they're new books and I'm enjoying them, I'm staying very caught up on them because I want to get to know the characters, and I don't want those to get 2 or 3 issues in, and I've now got to go all the way back because I haven't developed a strong enough connection yet to those characters. I'm enjoying those books so far, and we'll talk about those next episode. But I thought it was interesting to talk about, do we read every single book as soon as they come out, or do some stockpile? A lot of times you and I make a choice like, hey, we haven't talked about Superman in a while, let's talk about that character, or we haven't talked Aquaman in a while, let's talk about that character. And that'll take a book that I'm normally stockpiling and bump it up. Although Aquaman, I don't know that I could ever stockpile Aquaman. It's just too good. So that's interesting how it drives that. Wonder Woman's another title I couldn't stockpile because there's something about that I'm really digging. So, all right.
Look at those strange little beetles. They look... Great neutrons!
Hey, guys. My name is Anthony. I've been listening. I think my first interaction with you guys was on a post about digital comics, which was great. Thanks for responding to me to the poster Jim Durgan pretty cool interaction about the digital comics there. Been a listener since about October, and I love your podcast for the sheer fact that it's positive, unlike a lot of other fandom podcasts and websites and things like that. There's too much negativity in anything geeky, not just comic books. You know, people get worked up over console versus console and things like that, and I'm like, just enjoy what you want, right? So as for me, I'm a guy who grew up with Marvel, but nowadays I'm pretty much purely DC, with the exception of 2 Marvel books on my pull list. Not knocking on DC's my preference. That's what I like. Now, me and my buddies, we have made a sort of hobby of going to our comic book shops or going up north to go get comics. We're in Colorado. We're in Pueblo specifically, so we go up to Springs, which is about 40 miles north, Colorado Springs. Then we go to Denver sometimes. And it's very, very, very cool to do that with your friends. Like, it just brings us together, and just going on comic hunting, and it's just awesome. And amongst us, we read pretty much, between all 3 of us, we read pretty much almost every New 52 book, which is pretty cool. So, you know, and then we have a few others, you know, indies and things like that. So it's pretty cool. But there's a couple things I wanted to ask you guys. Just listen to your show about San Diego and Comic-Cons, and a couple of things about that. 2 things, and then about a comic book that's very special to me that I've recently reread and had a different impact on me now than it did when I first read it. First things first, we've gone the first 2 years to Denver Comic-Con. Denver Comic-Con is quickly becoming, they're saying, one of the biggest conventions in the nation, which is very cool. But I wanted to point out your guys' talk about, you know, capacity and things like that. What was interesting, you know, was we went last year, the first one, and mind you, there was a lot of people, and it was on a Saturday. There was a lot of people. It was pretty cool. It was pretty crazy, but not a whole lot that you know, it was very anxiety ridden. And I don't get anxious very easily about people personally. However, this year, I love the Denver Comic-Con, but I don't think they were prepared for the capacity. We have to wait in line to get to the floors. It was, you know, to get to the show floor where they sold stuff. I mean, to the seller's floor, to the marketplace area, and that was crazy as heck. So, I mean, what do you guys think? I don't know how much you've heard of Denver Comic-Con. It's very cool. We've had, you know, Denny O'Neil was there. Neil Adams was there. I got a comic book signed by George Perez. You know, last year they had Michael Uslan, who produces the Batman stuff. They had Gail Simone there. It was very, very cool last year and this year. And I don't know, it's cool. So I don't know how much you've heard about that. So that's Denver Comic-Con. The other thing, what was the other convention-based thing? I agree with streaming. You know, we should stream them. And then, you know what? Let's move to my comic book. I recently reread, and I'm surprised no one really talks about this. One of my favorite comic book stories of all time is JLA Avengers, or Avengers JLA. And this is cool to talk about, specifically with, you know, Batman Superman coming out and JLA and Avengers 2 and all that. This is one of my favorite all-time comics, written by Kurt Busiek and drawn by George Perez. I want to know what you guys think about it, because there's a lot of cool sequences in that book, and if you've read it, and it's personally a favorite of mine. We don't see inter-company crossovers. I don't know if it's likely we'll ever see one again, considering that this was written, it's been 10 years since this story was released. 10 years this month. I remember I picked up my first copy September of 2003. It's near August, September 2013. Nearly 10 years ago, I was 20, hardcore Marvel fan. Reread it as a DC fan and someone who still had a fond memory for older Marvel stuff. I loved it still, from both perspectives. And I want to know what you guys think of it, because there's a lot of great scenes. One of my favorite scenes is with Captain America in the Batcave and looking at all, you know, the Jason Todd suit and stuff like that, or the scene where, you know, in the last issue where Superman's like, we want you to be, you know, Superman telling Captain America, we want you to be leader. Or there's a scene where Batman and Iron Man are outfitting the gun, and Tony Stark's like, oh, let's put some guns in it, and why isn't there any guns or something like that? And Bruce Wayne's like, I don't like guns. You know, there's so many great character moments, you know, even shows how at that time, you know, the different worlds contrasted each other. You know, DC, they were a little bit more optimistic towards their heroes back then. You had the Marvel Universe, which at the time, you know, had the events of Grant Morrison's new X-Men still freshly new when Genosha was wiped out by the Sentinels like Cassandra Nova, stuff like that. So I want to know what you guys think of it. It was a very, very cool read. And I want to thank you. And you guys have one of my favorite podcasts with that and Batman on Batman, which I absolutely love. So I want to thank you guys for your time, and hopefully you get this for the next episode. Thanks.
Hey, Anthony. Thanks, first of all, for the kind words and the great voicemail. I'm going to start first with JLA Avengers, just because we did some episodes relating on that. I, very similar to you, and Jim, very similar to you, grew up at various times being a huge Marvel fan, and I still am. It's one of those things where a lot of times decisions on what I'm reading just goes on the fact that my budget's limited. I would love to be able to say I could read both universes and all the comics published by both, and be able to fit that time in and budget in, because I'm not anti-Marvel, and that's not the point of this podcast at all, is to be it's not to be anti-anything comic related. I, like you, I have indies and things like that I read as well. I love your story about your friends, where you guys get together and you'll make trips and you'll divide. It sounds like you guys kind of divide and conquer. You guys, between all of you, are getting the whole New 52. And I actually encourage people to take this story and try to do that. If you got some friends locally who are reading comics and stuff like that, and you want to read more, maybe kind of do this thing where because Jim and I, when we started the show, were sharing comics. That was a way for Jim to read, because he wasn't working at the time we actually started the podcast. So I think that's just a great story and just a cool thing to share. Back to JLA Avengers, we did, it looks like 5 episodes. I did a search actually on our website because I didn't remember, because I knew we broke up the content with other comic content. We talked about JLA Avengers on 208, 209, 211, 213, and 214. And we did a really big, in-depth look at it, and it's a very dense piece. There's a ton going on, and Jim had never read it, and I thought it would be kind of cool on our show to be able to talk about our love for Marvel heroes. So we did that way back then. So feel free to listen to our episodes for our thoughts there. I'll give you a quick summary. We both loved it. I mean, there's a lot to love there, but it was great to get really specific. So if you're interested in our specific thoughts on that, and you want to hear our depth to our thoughts, but I'll give you the quick cliff notes and the fact that we both really enjoyed the material for a lot of what you mentioned here. It was great to see the team-ups of the characters, and to see that really the creative team involved understood fully the Marvel characters and the DC characters, to the point where you're getting really the reactions that we expected from those characters when they were together. So it was just a very cool series, and just fun to geek out about. Back to the Denver Comic-Con. And this is kind of the thing with capacity. A lot of my comments came from things like we've had tables at the New York Comic Con and C2E2 over the years. I haven't been able to do that the past couple of years just because of work conflicts and things like that. But we've done that multiple years, where we were actually able to set up for a podcast, and those conventions were very kind to provide like a podcast arena area for us to be able to do. It was great. And I know they still do those at those conventions, so it's really cool. One thing I noticed with both conventions is, as they got bigger, they had to change the floor layout. They had to change table layout to create the flow that you're mentioning. Where there was years we went there, it was very hard to get from A to B because the capacity was more than they expected. And I think that's what happens with a convention. You estimate the capacity, and you set up a game plan of like, hey, this is how we think it will work, and this is how we think the flow will work. A good thing I suggest for a lot of what you're talking about is, I think that it's very similar how you're talking about how there's just a ton of negativity. I'm sure they get bombarded with nonsense negativity, where, people just say, oh, that stunk, and that's instead of coming back with like really constructive criticism. I would encourage you to like maybe send the Denver Comic-Con and encourage your friends who've gone as well, just a pleasant note telling them the things that worked, and just some things you'd want them to improve on. Like like the traffic flow, like maybe give them specifics and just say, hey, had a really great time here. Just noticed getting from here to here was a little difficult. You might want to consider that in the layout for next year because I'm really excited to go again. Because it sounds like a convention that's on, I haven't heard of it. And a lot of times we rely on phone calls like this to get the buzz about conventions. I think it's a good way to make the general public aware. So I'm glad you called about this. And I encourage anybody, you go to a cool convention, please call the show and let us know because I know for myself, I get eager to attend a convention based on feedback from actual fans who went there and really enjoyed the convention. But I would encourage you to give them feedback and just, let them know what worked because I think that's just as important as letting them know what didn't. Because you don't want them to drop something or change something that you thought went really well. So I would, fill it in with the good stuff and also fill it in with the criticism and do it in a way where if there's a solution you might have that's doable, where you're like, hey, if they just did this quick little thing, it would make it so much easier and it wouldn't mess up what they were doing. Those are always great things to add. So that would be my encouragement there. But thanks for the kind words. And I love hearing, this stories of fans geeking out about comics. This is, as I've shared on the show many times, and Jim as well, we were talking about actually at the end of the recording of this, just how important podcasting is in comics in general. And same thing, like I was watching today, Ray Donovan on Showtime. And, it's not a comic book related thing, but this is a new show on Showtime and I'd heard some good things about it. So it's 5 episodes in now. So I'm watching it on Showtime On Demand, and I've just really been geeking out and really enjoying it. And I don't know, that to me is what pop culture is all about. And you're right, it extends beyond comics. It goes to film, it goes to video games, like you were mentioning. I don't get into the, one platform's got to be better than the other. I think for fans, competition's excellent, especially in gaming, especially in comics, especially in film, television. If there's no competition, or if one thing is so thoroughly dominating, that's when things start to get watered down. There's not as much effort to really entice the audience base. So, I remember growing up with the old NES, the original Nintendo Entertainment System. And towards the latter part of its tenure, there was a lot of junk being produced for it. And the reason why was because there wasn't really a competition there. And then once the competition started kicking up and Sega started coming out with the Genesis, there was like this resurgence of just amazing games being developed by all of the gaming companies out there, including the third parties. Because a lot of the junk that was coming out for the NES was really third-party stuff that was just being pumped out because they were cash cows. They'd put a label and stick around and go, hey, boom, here you go. So I think the same thing applies to comics and all other entertainment. And I think the competition's important. I think it's great. I love when great comics are being put out. I like when there's great comics being put out that I can't afford to get because, to me, I'd rather have the problem that we're all having as fans be there's too much good product. We can pick and choose then and make the perfect pull list. And I'm a huge fan of that. If there's one thing I always want people to walk out of this podcast with, it's the idea of if something stinks in your pull list and you're feeling that bitter about it that you want to go posting on blogs and ranting and raving like that, switch it up because that's not what this hobby's all about. You're doing comics all wrong if you're that miserable all the time with it. Because to me, nothing is more exciting in my week than when Wednesday roll around and there's new books. And, I like the fact that it's really troubling to try and figure out what my first book I'm going to read is because I'm so excited to read so many of them. And it sounds like you have that same experience. So I connected with you and your enthusiasm immediately because I think that's what this hobby's all about. Whatever company you like, whatever system you like at all, whatever film's your favorite, all that kind of stuff. It's the important thing is that we're all geeking out on it. I just loved your story with your friends. I think that's amazing. I hope I answered your question with comic conventions. I know Jim tends to get a lot of anxiety in crowds, but I do think it's that sense of lack of movement, a lot of what you're talking about. It's that sense that we need to keep getting from place to place, don't want to get trapped and stuck in a certain area. And I think that conventions do pay attention to that. I've noticed major conventions that I've been at, like New York and C2E2, and even Wizard World, Ohio, which used to be the Mid-Ohio Con. I go to that every year consistently because it's a drive for me. And Comic Geek Speak does their Super Show. All of those conventions have something in common in the sense that there's been slight tweaks and changes every single time they've had a new one for just the things that you're talking about, capacity and flow. And a lot of that comes from feedback. So make sure to give that feedback to the Denver Comic Con. And for anybody out there, if you've been to a convention and there's things that you can give that's positive, constructive feedback where they can actually do something with it, that's really great. So cool. Thanks for the call, Anthony.
How's it going, Sean and Jim? This is Brandon calling out New Orleans again. Here to talk a little, couple of things today. Trinity War being the big one. I just got finished up reading the third tie-in with the Justice League. So now we have the Trinity of the Justice League books have been released, and I gotta say I'm pretty hyped up for this event. I was listening to the last episode, you guys talking about do we get a eventitis and stuff like that. I can get tired of events, but when done right, I really enjoy them. And man, this one is being done right. I love the way how this has kind of been led into for 2 years now. Starting with the Free Comic Book Day issue, which is now finally being talked about. It was even mentioned. I forget. I just ran through all three of the Justice League books kind of really quickly before I called, and one of the books they actually mentioned, that excursion with Steve Trevor and him and the agents trying to find the box in that first little book for Free Comic Book Day 2 years ago. So it's really cool that DC had a plan and they stuck to it. For all of the changes that has happened in the last couple of years, I think the New 52 kind of did what it set out to do. It tried new things. Some were successful, some weren't. You can't argue with DC dropping books that maybe weren't selling to try other things. And, the time was right for a Constantine book, with all of the drops. So we got a Constantine book right before this event. And that's going really good. And, Constantine's really tied heavily into all of this. So it's just, I think it shows that DC has had sort of a plan all along, and they've stuck to it. Now they've got a good event coming out of it. And, man, what a way to set an event, Superman, spoiler, of course, Superman, we've talked about it, killed Dr. Light, and that's how this whole thing started. What's going on with him, that's the big thing. Is it Pandora's influence? Who's the outsider? I love your speculation on, you didn't take credit for it, but of course, being Alfred from Earth 3, it would definitely seem to have some sort of connection to Batman heavy, because, the Justice League of America was able to break into the Batcave to get the kryptonite. I don't know if they said it was Vibe or not yet, concretely, but we can all assume it was Vibe because they couldn't see him on the cameras when they were stealing the kryptonite in the Batcave, and that's, of course, Vibe's thing. But, so there has to be some sort of heavy connection to Batman, and that seems like a very logical one. Of course, there could be anything, but man, we talked about some people shifting teams, and we can already kind of see that happening. Of course, I think Wonder Woman actually is going to seems like maybe she might like the Justice League dark and defect to that for a while. We have Green Arrow going where, of course, he always wanted to go with the Justice League. I can see Batman seeing a purpose for the JLA and wanting to maybe stick around in that area for a little while. So yeah, it's going to be a weird time for all of the Justice League members, because I can see where they would want to align themselves in different places at the moment, especially with everything going on. Everybody has left Waller, which is a good thing. So that means the Justice League of America can finally take on their own ideals. They can choose their own missions and decide what they're going to do at this point of the Trinity War. But I like where this is going. I want to see more. I can't wait for the next issues to find out what's going to happen, what's going on with Superman. I love Hawkman and Aquaman. I can see them just ending up on a team together, because I think they need to be. There would just be. I could see an Aquaman and Hawkman team up going from this. That would be awesome. I would buy that book every month, because it just seems like it would be a really fun book with those two charging in the battle all the time. I would love it. But anyway, so that's a couple of my little thoughts on the Trinity War. I'm excited to see what's happening with this. I was a little worried about the Villains Month when I heard about it. I was worried maybe it was a grab, but I see there's more going on to it, so I'm excited. But second thing I wanted to talk on, Superman, Batman. There's a movie. Oh my God, I'm very, very excited about that. When I heard about it at Comic-Con, I wish I was there to scream with the rest of the crowd. But I'm the Batman guy, as we all know about, and I'm the comic book ambassador not only in my family but at work as well. And I run a restaurant, and during my shifts, one guy in particular, we talk a lot while we're cooking, and he's a Superman guy. I'm a Batman guy, so I got to mess with him the other day. It's on the shift. I got to look at him and go, it's funny when they were thinking, what can we do to make the Superman movie better? I got it. Batman. But good joke. It was awesome to be able to say that. But I'm really excited to see this happen. I hope it doesn't turn out to be a Superman Batman brawl fest for all. But I can't wait. It's going to be a good one. And the Superman Batman book, some quality stuff. I just finished the second issue. I'm a little bit more. I can tell where it's going a little bit more now. I was definitely confused kind of in the first issue. I love the way the second issue unfolded with the young Clark and the older Clark, and Ma Kent figuring out that was her son and that he lost his parents at a younger age. It just seems like something that she would be able to do because she knows her son so well, and it's something that I miss in the DC universe is having, the Kents around, especially her, because she was such a positive influence on Clark's life, and she had moments like that before. So it was good to see that come out of this book for sure. I loved when both the Supermans were, running around together. You had older Superman from Earth 2, I think it is. We can all assume it's Earth 2 at this point, I think. Flying, telling, the other guy, hey, I can give you a lift if you want. And he's just hopping around. No, I'm cool. I got it. You had your two Batmans figuring everything out together, having their Batman moments. So, it's a cool book, beautifully drawn. I hear some people not too sure that they like the art style, and it definitely seems weird. There's some frames where you don't know exactly where the panel is taking place because it's very artsy. But I read the Ozymandias series, so I'm kind of adapted to that style already. I saw it, and I think it's very cool and unique, and I'm glad to see that they're at least taking a chance on a different style. But anyway, guys, that's a couple of my thoughts this week. Great job on the show, and talk to you later.
To me, the advantage of doing like a Superman Batman and then doing a Superman Wonder Woman, which is upcoming, is you get the advantage of being able to do stories that kind of fall a little outside of continuity. While it's a series that takes place in continuity, you can still do things that really you don't have time for when you're trying to keep like your regular Justice League team book so tied into everything that's happening with everybody else that's on the team. When you're just taking two characters and focusing on them, you have an opportunity to tell some stories that fans always want to see, some more intimate stories with those characters. And that's what I've liked about the first two issues of Superman Batman. It's a more intimate look at them as individuals, but also how they react to what they learn about each other as individuals. And that's something as a fan that I geek out about, that, when a universe changes like this, you've got an opportunity to look at the same relationship that we've seen for years and to get new stories that are told in a new way about those characters that give you like a glimpse into a facet of the relationship that we never knew was there. And yet also make it very contemporary to today's ideologies and sensibilities. What works about these characters and why they've been around for so long is the fact that they are able to bend and shift and change while not losing what makes them work at the core to a more modern thinking, and to a more modern world. And that's where we get great stories like this. I'm loving every minute of that book because of that, just because of the alternate options, being able to see, like you said, a young Clark now being able to, talk with the people that we've always wanted to see him talk to, because I'm with you. I love the Kents. I mean, that's like a big part of Clark for me. So when they take opportunities to tell stories like this, it's really important, and they're critical, and they make me smile. So that kind of stuff works. I'm going to avoid talking about Justice League Dark because we're going to jump into that next episode. So I'm going to we'll continue our Trinity War discussion on the next episode. So a lot of our comments about what you're talking about, you're actually kind of a cool end off lead in to that discussion for our next episode. So thanks for calling in on that.
Hey, Sean and Jim, this is Noel from Chicago. Just listened to your most recent episode about all the panels and stuff that happened at San Diego. I think it was pretty cool. I had an interesting idea after they announced the whole Superman-Batman movie of, how they're trying to get to the Justice League slowly but surely. And the story that I came up with was, what if they use a little bit of what happened in the Flashpoint story, where you have a war that begins with the Amazons and the Atlanteans, two mystical races that we didn't even really know existed, all of a sudden show up and are fighting each other, and Superman and Batman are forced to get involved because, governments are worried, and, these are superpowered threats and, armies and stuff. And as Superman and Batman get involved, that means you're also introducing Wonder Woman and Aquaman, which, by the end will have resolved all the differences. So you've gotten two other characters. And then you could go one step further and have the person that actually pulled the strings behind the curtain to manipulate everything is somebody like Brainiac. And the way he did it when they finally take Brainiac down and get on board his ship is that he's got a Martian Manhunter under his control that was using his mental powers to keep the Amazonians and the Atlanteans in an agitated state. So you would literally, it would almost be like a World Finest movie with Superman and Batman, but then you're also introducing Wonder Woman, Aquaman, and Martian Manhunter all in one fell swoop. So you're setting yourself up to jump right into a Justice League movie then. Just thought I'd throw that out there and see what you guys think. It's great hearing the podcast, and I'll talk to you guys later. Bye.
Hey, Noel, I think that idea is great. I wouldn't do that for the next film. I would do that for a film afterwards or something like that as a way to kind of bridge. I like the idea of the next film really focusing on the relationship between Superman and Batman and really being focused on that. I think there is a danger if you try to introduce too much in one film that you're going to run into some of the things that have turned off people to comic book movies that maybe, your typical fans really enjoyed, but they were kind of too busy for the general public. I think what you're talking about would be something you would build to, and I think you're thinking that way too. I think you're just throwing out an idea of hey, this would be the way to bridge something like that. I would love to see them, and I'm not saying that your idea would be necessarily how we do it. Maybe, yours would be a full feature. I would love to see them, though, do some form of animated feature in between. They tried to do this before with the Nolan Batman series. They did the animated feature that had a bunch of shorts that were kind of bridging material between Batman Begins and The Dark Knight. I would like to see them do a feature film, an animated feature film that takes place maybe between a Superman and Batman film that maybe introduces, and doesn't have to be necessarily introducing the Justice League, maybe just introduces other characters that are around in that world. I don't think there's any reason why you can't expand the movie universe through other medium. It's kind of and I guess where I'm getting this idea from is shows like S.H.I.E.L.D., Marvel S.H.I.E.L.D. that's coming out on television. That's a way to kind of expand their world. Or, a lot of times people have questioned, is Arrow linked to the Man of Steel universe? You could take things like Arrow, if they're going to be developing a Flash series off of Arrow, which it sounds like they're doing now. I think you could take shows like that and link them. And just use other medium as a way to flesh out and expand that universe, so you don't always have to do it in a film. You can always have that universe, fleshed out and bring those characters in otherwise. So that'd be a way to bring in a Green Arrow and a Flash into those films. Kind of doing what you're saying also, though, in film, where you're introducing some characters in film, some characters are coming from television, and, you can kind of do a quickie introduction then in the actual main movie when they're all brought in. So I don't know what the answer is. definitely curious to see how they're going to proceed. I think it makes sense to do it the way that they are because it's never been done before. We've never had a Superman-Batman team-up before. So I think that's really a cool idea because they're two characters they know are successful franchises. They're going to get people excited. I think it's a way to kind of link two concepts that have worked and show that maybe people who don't remember, the casual audience, it's kind of like, is Spider-Man in the same world as Superman? You can definitely cement Superman and Batman are part of the same universe. And I think that's really important moving forward, that casual identification that these are two guys that are friends but then can be adversaries and all that kind of stuff you can introduce to a whole new audience. So this film is the right way to go. And like you said, it gives you a great opportunity then with that foundation strong and people are behind it to use that then as a launching point to go further from that. And I love your idea on how to do it. And, I think whether they use Flashpoint or other comic book material, one of the things that is starting to really work about these films is they may not be adapting it word for word, scene from scene and things like that, but they're taking concepts from the comics and bringing them more into films and kind of like a patchwork quilt, where it's a really well-made patchwork quilt, where they're taking this concept and putting it with this concept because it works better as a movie flow. But yet they're all things that at their core are really strong stories and really strong elements of stories that have made these characters tried and true and strong in fans' hearts throughout the years. They're going to the source material for this. And you're mentioning that, whether they use Flashpoint or something else, it doesn't matter. Your point's well made that if you pull elements from little pieces from source material and use them as ways to introduce other characters into this world, you can do that. Superman, Batman, very similar to what they did in Man of Steel. I'm sure there's going to be subtly dropped or in your face elements that introduce the larger world, because they did already introduce Wayne Tech and Luthor Corps in the Man of Steel film. So, if you keep doing stuff like that, and I think Arrow as a television series does that real well too, kind of gives us little hints and nods to a larger universe. So I would like to see more of that happen in the next film in a way that doesn't derail the main story. And I think they've got a nice balance of that. So I'm excited for it too, and your ideas are great. I would love to see them go that route, or any route really, like you're saying, let's get this thing going. I'm glad I think we're getting forward momentum now, and they've got a really good plan in place.
How's it going, guys? This is Brandon calling out New Orleans. Got a couple of little things to talk about today. One big, I guess I shouldn't say surprising point, but I picked up the Flash Annual this week, and I gotta say, man, I really, really, really dug this book. It's something I've been looking for in my DC Comics for a while, actually. It was some real lighthearted, just awesome fun all the way through. There were hints of the first issue of Justice League from the New 52. I guess I'll get into talking about it first before I go all over the place with the book. I did read Flash in the beginning of the New 52, but it was, unfortunately one of those books that I had to let go to make room for other titles and adjustments, But I gotta know, is the rest of the line this fun and this good? Has the series been like this the whole time? Because I really enjoyed this. We start off with Hal and Barry, kind of hanging out in the club, I guess, before Hal's gonna leave for his big adventure that's going on in Green Lantern right now. But they get whisked away to Arena World. And I'm guessing this is the same thing that was going on in Threshold. I wasn't reading that title. I think it got canceled. I'm guessing the end of this book is why it got canceled. But anyway, so we get a good recollection of how Hal and Barry first met through this Arena World segment, because they're drinking in the bar. They get pulled into the Arena World, and apparently the first time they met, Hal and Barry were on the same investigation, and through extenuating circumstances, they end up in outer space, of course, because Hal's a Green Lantern, and on this planet, and they save the kids, and they were running short on some power, so to get out of there, Hal made a deal without Barry knowing to basically fight in the arena for them one day if they let him go. And so they went ahead and made the deal. The kids went, and years went by without Hal ever telling Barry, and bam, one night it happens, and here we go. So there's a lot of arguing going back and forth between Hal and Barry, but it was quite funny because you got to see how completely opposite they are, but how similar their goals always are. So it was a good issue in that. I love when they first met up, the fact that, Barry wasn't in uniform as the Flash. He was actually Barry Allen. And when he shows up as the Flash, Hal figures it out right away and goes, "Hey, no, it's no big deal. Hey, I'm Hal Jordan, blah, blah, blah." Barry's like, "Are you crazy? Don't do that. Don't tell me that." Which, if you guys recall in the Justice League first issue, when Hal first meets Batman, that's kind of, I'm pretty sure it was Batman that happened with. That was something that happened. Batman took his mask off and he's like, "Hey, I don't want to know your identity." So it was a cool throwback to that. But we go on to the issue, and of course they fight in the arena world. We come to a point where it has to go to a one-on-one, and the people that are moderating the event go ahead and take Hal out, and we're left with basically Barry put into a one-on-one situation with this champion of arena world. And he ducks, dodges, does everything he can do with the Speed Force to get out of it, but I'm guessing he's still depowered at this point a little bit, because earlier in the issue they kind of touched on that he wasn't as fast on this planet before, but he ends up having to use Hal's ring. It was an awesome little fold out of how he used the Speed Force to think his way into knowing how to use the ring before he got it on. Awesome little layout. I love it. I was reading The Flash kind of right when he discovered the whole thinking process. So I saw this in the earlier issues, and I did enjoy it then. So I definitely really enjoyed it now. But then, of course, the Flash gets out of it, and once they're kind of done with the champion, all of a sudden the whole Lantern Corps show up, and they take out the arena world people, which is what I'm guessing that happened in Threshold. I'm not sure. I didn't read that title, but anyway, then we get Hal and Barry with their little nice moment as they're coming home. They have a little whole we're opposite but we're the same buddy cop kind of moment. I really enjoyed it. I picked up the issue because I'm a Hal guy. I love Green Lantern, so I always liked the Green Lantern and Flash together, and this definitely showed me why I love them together. It almost makes me wish that I hope I don't butcher his name, Buccioletta, would have taken over Green Lantern too, because I love the way he wrote Hal. He had a great voice for him. But if you guys have been reading the rest of the series, I was hoping that maybe you can fill me in on it. Let me know are the rest of the issues this fun? Because if so, I might have to go back to picking up the Flash, because I thoroughly enjoyed it. And to touch on a little side subject, Flashpoint came out this week. Nano Man was in a good little romp, and we got a preview to find out that the new 52 will be coming to the DVD world, the animated series, with the first 6 issues of Justice League being their next thing coming out this year. So I'm really excited about that. In fact, like I just said, reading the Flash issue brought me back to those early 6 issues, and I definitely thoroughly enjoyed it. So I'm excited about that. Anyway, guys, love the show, and have a good one.
The Flash has been one of those series. It's funny, on the show, I know we're a very positive podcast and things like that, but I think we all have very similar pull lists, where we have books that probably fall into different categories. we have those books that we think are great. They're the ones that you can't wait to rush to. Your Aquamans, Batman and Robin. For me, Batgirl falls into that category. I'm digging some of the newer titles like The Movement and Green Team, but I mean, there's Animal Man and things like that are falling into those categories of like they're almost at great, like they're kind of skirting that line. Flash has been one of those books as it's progressed. It started off for me being a really good book and graduated quickly to being a great book. To being one of those books when it comes out, I read it right away. Like, and that's kind of my hierarchy. What ends up happening is I have my great books that there's 3 or 4 every week that I like immediately set up at the top of the stack. I'm super excited to read, and I have to decide between those 3 or 4 which ones I'm going to start reading first. Then I have the ones afterwards that are really good books that, I'm like, these are good titles that would never drop in a million years, but I can wait for those initial reads in order to get to. And then there's my stack of good books that are ones that, like, I'm enjoying. They're good titles. It may be a title that maybe the month, like 2 months before, was really good, but like maybe it's building right now, so I'm like, it's a good read right now. They're building to something, and when it builds to that something, it's probably going to jump up a little bit higher on my stack as far as reading order. They're not on the chopping block because they're good books, but they're not, at the same level right now. Flash is one of those titles that it's been, I want to say, just a few months into the series, it jumped right to great. And it's been one of those titles because of the fun factor that you're mentioning. The difference between this Flash series and the one that was before the whole Flashpoint thing and the New 52, with the previous series, we had a Barry who came back from the dead. And he'd been gone for a long time, and he was really disconnected from the world, and it was kind of a dark place for him for a while. I really liked that series. Extremely well written. I'm not knocking the series at all. But because of the nature of Barry at the time, some of the fun of the Flash, the hope, and the positive that you get from the Flash was missing. And I think it's one of the things, what you're mentioning in your comments here about the Flash, is I think what makes the Flash a unique character, and it's got to be there. My love for Wally West comes from that. He went through some crazy difficult stuff in his book, but there was always like a fun factor to it. There was a positive. There was, there were things in his life that, in spite of all of that stuff, would bring him back from that brink, and it would be bright and happy, and there was something about that. And I think a guy who runs around wearing red and yellow has got to have that factor to him. Flash feels like the most tried and true, and it's kind of a weird thing to say in a world with Superman, but he's like my idea. Like, I would hope I could be a superhero like the Flash. He's just the Flash is the guy you feel like you can hang with. I'm not knocking Superman. Superman and his concept. Superman's like larger than life. He's that guy that you look up to, and you're like, I can never be Superman. I think you could hang out with Barry and like have a good time with him. He's down to earth. He's a people person. He's street level. And there's something about that accessibility, and there's a fun to him, and he brings hope. And that's what this series has. And the art is always terrific. And it's a style that seems to work with... I was a big fan of DC's book, and there's probably a lot of people who didn't read it, or maybe you weren't a fan of it the way I was. I loved The Shield when it was out by DC, when they published it and they were using that character. Here's one of the things I liked about it. The art style in the book matched the character, and you felt like you were being pulled into that character's world. The Flash's art style is very stylized, and you feel like it works for the Flash title. It feels sleek, it feels fast, it feels unique. Panels are drawn in a way that takes advantage of the character's powers, and the book's always fun. Even though there's just really tough things happening in this guy's life. I love his supporting cast. I love the villains in his book. They feel very different. I'm a huge Batman fan. I love Batman's Rogues Gallery. Flash's Rogues Gallery are just as rich, but it's a very different experience reading them and their code versus reading Batman's villains, and that should feel that way. There's something like I'm hoping that it does. There's rumors now this is graduating into a television series. They're going to be doing something with Green Arrow. where this is going to go into a Flash television series, and there's rumors about a film. I don't know how close those rumors really are, because we've been hearing rumors of the Wonder Woman television series and a Wonder Woman film for ever. But I think the Flash, if done right today with today's technology, could be one of those cool, accessible, positive, fun characters with deep, rich storytelling. They just need to look at these comics right now and the classic ones that have worked so well with this character to see why this would be a big screen smash. I like the fact that you called in and said, hey, I'm not reading The Flash right now, but because Hal Jordan was in the annual, I picked up the annual. And here's the great thing. For anybody out there who's a Hal Jordan fan, they just, from your commentary, realize that they can read the annual and enjoy it and get a good Barry Allen, Hal Jordan story. And they don't have to be picking up, the whole, if they can't fit into their budget, they can pick up that annual. I encourage, if anybody does that, I'm always fascinated by that, because I'm always interested in, how people budget out their comics, and if they're able to pick and choose, certain single issues like you're mentioning there, and having a success at reading that without feeling like, hey, I'm lost. And it sounds like the creative team did a really terrific job for you, because I can't speak to that because I'm reading The Flash. So, I can make assumptions and say, hey, this is a really accessible issue. But without being that person who hasn't read all of that material like you have. So thank you for calling in for that, because I always like those recommendations where they're coming from somebody who's actually really in that experience. And can you say, hey, pick up Flash Annual #2. It's a great jumping on point if you're not reading Flash. And if you're just looking for a single great read, it works that way. If you don't have the budget to keep picking up the Flash series, you can at least pick this up. And I want to see that happen more, because it shows DC's that annuals work, that there's a casual crowd that will pick up the annuals. And those are good recommendations. So thanks for recommending that. So it is a great read. And the Flash series, as far as the fun factor you're mentioning, I cannot recommend highly enough. It's one of the great reads in my stack. I put it up there with Aquaman and stuff like that. For people that are reading Aquaman, I just think it's one of those books. Wonder Woman, I'm really digging for similar reasons. These are books that are doing that. Animal Man is in that stack for anybody that's reading that book. Swamp Thing has been there for me. These are books that have graduated to great. I could throw out the whole Bat family of titles, but I'm a Batman guy. I'm an easy mark with those. But it's in that category for me of great reads that I end up jumping to right when they come out. Flash is one of those. There's many weeks when Flash will come out, and I will read Flash being my first or second book, depending on the story arc that's going on, since the New 52 has kicked off, because I really like the book that much. It means that much to me. So to me, that's always a sign when it jumps up on the reading list, when you've got so many books in there, that you're like, my first couple were books. Flash is always in that stack. It's in the 3 or 4 stack, which is my great book stack. I do want to remind everyone about our show voicemail line. It's 1-440-388-4434 or drnorge on Skype. And I love having your comments a part of the podcast, so please consider calling into the show and giving us your thoughts.
Now I can get out of here.
Once again, sponsoring this episode is DCBService.com and InStockTrades.com. Do not forget that August 2013 Vertigo Bundle #1, Sandman Overture #1, Coffin Hill #1, Hinterkind #1, The Witching Hour #1, $18.96 regularly, 50% off, only $9.48 from DCBService.com. Over at InStockTrades.com, The Animal Man Omnibus, $75 book, 712 pages, 50% off, only $37.50 if you get it at InStockTrades.com. Orders $50 or more, give you free shipping. I want to thank DCBService.com and InStockTrades.com for continuing to support our show. Jim, I want to real quickly shout out RagingBullets.com. And we've got a column that's being done weekly right now by Jim Durden called Direct Currents 2.0. We also have a link to our YouTube channel. And what we have being posted there right now, they're called Bulleteer Hangouts. And Jeremy and a bunch of friends of the show, Mark and Isaiah, and I honestly, I know it's been like a rotating group of people that have been there. I got to be on the first one. They're meeting regularly to do Google Chats, Google Hangouts, and they're recording them. And if you can't attend, what we're doing is turning them into YouTube videos where you can just listen to them on YouTube. So it's a great opportunity for, if you can't be a part of that, it's their discussions about not only DC Comics, but anything relating to DC Comics, but also they'll dabble in other forms of pop culture, media, television, things like that. They're just great, exactly what you think. They're hangouts. So if you haven't had a chance, there's 3 of them up right now. And there's a direct link to him on our website, but we also have a YouTube channel that you can subscribe to. The guys are awesome. I was really enjoying the first discussion I had with them. I'm definitely going to pop in and do it again. But they're often doing it on their own and just having a great time doing it. So I wanted to make sure to shout it out and encourage you to check it out. So that's ragingbullets.com for Direct Currents 2.0. And, of course, the Bullets Your Hangouts. Jim's column, have you had a chance to read it yet?
No, I haven't.
He's got 3 of them up there. It's outstanding. He's really current to date on them. He does commentary on comics, and also he'll do commentary on things like DC and animation, DC and gaming, DC all over the place. He'll touch on the current news, the things that like are buzzworthy that we're all talking about, and throw in some quick editorial comments about it to get people thinking. The cool part is with his column, we already have people responding on the website to his column. So I encourage people to go there, check out Jim's column. It's incredibly well produced. The one thing I like about Jim, right away, Jim's got his own voice. It's clear what kind of fan he is, how he thinks about comics and DC and the media in general. And he just really throws his own spin of his own history as a fan in with current contemporary topics about it. So it's Direct Currents 2.0. It's available on our website. And Jim Durden's just doing an amazing job. He's hitting it out of the park. And I really wanted to just give it a shout out here. It's weekly. I always tweet it out. You can follow us on the Raging Bullets Twitter. That also goes to our Raging Bullets Facebook page. And I want to remind everybody that you can also join our Raging Bullets Facebook group, which is a wonderful community of people. We're available on Google Plus as well. So it's great opportunities to get in the know on what's going on with the podcast. It all starts with our website, ragingbullets.com. So we'll see everyone there. Our next episode, we're continuing on with the Trinity War. We're going to be talking about the Justice League Dark issue, Part 3. We're going to talk about Constantine, the issue that ties in with that. And we're also going to briefly talk about Pandora number 2. We're talking about the most recent issue of Green Team, Teen Trillionaires, and The Movement as well. 2 new books that have been coming out from DC. So that'll be our next episode, and we will see you then.
Bye.
Flying through space and time, 1,000 different lifetimes. Faded for love and flaws and incredibly clear sightlines. Swinging your mace around, such a practical outlook. Helping the JSA and occasionally supporting your own book. Hawkman, Hawkman, eagle eyes can't see. Hawkman, your plan. What you do to me, Hawkman. The villains are closing in, be they Thanin Guard or Egyptian. Working so hard to thwart you and Hawkgirl's mission. The odds are not on your side, and danger seems to stack up. Things would be so much easier